Hey, it's your boy, Big Swift, and it's come to this. There comes a time in every YouTuber's career, and what an illustrious career it's been. When eventually you come down to meme reviews. You come down to going on Reddit and just seeing what the hot trend is, and just why make content when you could just talk about other people's content, you know? PewDiePie gets it. At a certain point, the system just runs itself. I don't know if you know this, but PewDiePie has been a text-to-speech artificial intelligence program for the last 5 years, and considerable improvement on the original, in my opinion. What are we doing? We're talking about this. We're going Arctic with this one. We're going into the far north. We're going to look at some of these icebergs. You've probably seen some of these. It's a popular meme format, and you know, us YouTubers, we got to hop on the trends, bro. So an iceberg format means that we start with like the really common, vanilla, well-known, easy to see ideas, and then we descend deeper into the more eldritch and crazy and esoteric ideas. It's a really fun format. They do these for like real world conspiracy theories. There are some really fun ones. Today we're going to look at some Song of Ice and Fire theory icebergs, and I'm going to tell y'all objectively which ones are true, which ones are false. So like this is going to clear everything up. I know there's a lot of confusion about the Night of the Laughing Tree, the Frey Pies, Tyrion being a time-traveling fetus. We're going to resolve all of that right now, and it's going to be great. So, first iceberg. We're doing like multiple icebergs here. There's like a triple, so like be ready. And since we're Alt Swift X, we're going to acknowledge sources. So this iceberg was posted to Reddit 2 hours ago by Mo Exy, and I think it's good to cite your sources. So let's go down the iceberg. I love these little portraits down the side. So like on this meme format, you start with an image of like, you know, this is like the basic level. This is like the easy peasy level. Then we start getting weird and dark towards the end, and then we get truly enlightened with this cursed bold eye image. And that's what we're gonna look like once we get to the bottom of this iceberg. Okay, this is how deep it goes. But let's start easy. Let's start in the shallow waters before we get real deep sea kraken. You know. All right. So R plus L equals J is the top theory here. You'll heard of R plus L equals J. That motherfucker Alt Shift X made a video about it like 6 years ago. So it's not even a spoiler at this point. If you've heard of Jon Snow, you've heard of his parents. Well, that's not true. But if you're like a nerd who like, you know, is into theories, you know that Jon Snow is the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. And like for a long time there were still holdouts. There were still people going, ooh, Jon might actually be Ned and Ashara's son, or ooh, there's no mystery at all, and it was just Ned Stark with Wyler or whoever. For a long time there were holdouts. Then the season 6 episode 10 of the show, and then finally confirmed in season 8 of the show, he's the bloody son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. And yes, the show is not canon to the books, and yes, George Martin could pull out some crazy triple twist out his ass, which I imagine will be uncomfortable, getting a triple twist through a sphincter. But I think it's uncontrovertible. Unless George decides to fuck with us, I think it's uncontrovertible that Jon is the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. And I think the main reason why there's all these alternative theories around Jon being some other more elaborate conspiracy behind his birth, I think the reason for that is just that it's been too long between books. Like if we were getting books out every 2 years, we would not have had the time to descend into the depths of these really crazy alternate theories. I think that there is a mystery, and the mystery has an answer, and the answer is Rhaegar and Lyanna. And some people say it's too obvious, But it only seems obvious once you've been a part of the fandom and the theory's been around for so long. That's why it seems boring for Jon to be the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. It's a shame that mystery has had so much of the wind taken out of its sails by the show coming out and everything. Ola in the chat says, the name's so nice that Rhaegar used it twice. It is fucking absurd that in the TV show they decided that Jon Snow's real name was Aegon Targaryen when Rhaegar already had a son called Aegon Targaryen. That is dumb. Maybe in the books his name will be Jaehaerys Targaryen or Jonaerys Targaryen or maybe fucking Stacey. I don't know or care, but R plus L equals J is true. Robert Strong is the Mountain. Shouldn't really be a theory. I mean, in the books there is a lot more ambiguity whether the mysterious silent knight who arises in A Dance with Dragons really is the same person as Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, after he was poisoned in his duel with Oberyn Martell. There is it is a bit, ooh, is it him in the books? Whereas in the show that there's never any question about whether the Mountain, whether Robert Strong is the Mountain. They don't even use the name Robert Strong in the show, I think. I'm like 90% sure that they don't use the name Robert Strong. So, it becomes more obvious because of the show, but yeah, even in the books it's pretty bloody obvious. But I like that there's that ambiguity. I think that ambiguity does add to the horror of it. And of course in the books there is all this horror and this mystery around how exactly was Robert Strong created. What exactly is the nature of this zombie that Qyburn has created in his basement, and what happened to those poor women who were used up in the creation of Robert Strong? It's some real dark Frankenstein spooky ooky shit. So I'm glad that I think that mystery adds to the horror of it. Jon will be resurrected. Yep, that is obvious, yes. But of course there are all these questions around how Jon will be resurrected. Will there be a sacrifice? Will there be a change? Will Jon be a fire white? Will Jon's soul be inside his direwolf ghost? How will Melisandre be involved? There's lots of mystery around how Jon will be resurrected, but very little mystery around whether Jon will be resurrected. The Hound is the gravedigger. I honestly would put that a step down if I made this Iceberg, because that's not super obvious that the Hound is the gravedigger. If you'll remember, I think it's in book 4 when Brienne goes to the Quiet Isle and she sees this sworn brother of this little community of priests who and this guy's digging graves, and we know that it's the Hound because his leg hurts and he stops to pat a dog, which is very cute as a way of connecting the Hound to a dog, so I enjoy that a lot. Mucky Mucks in the live chat said that the name Robert Strong was used in the show one time in his intro scene. Yeah, I thought I was going crazy, because I mean there's this other YouTuber you might have heard of, Alt Shift X, made a whole video about Robert Strong versus the Mountain, blah blah blah, and that seemed kind of stupid in retrospect because the show entirely dropped the Robert Strong name and dropped the mystery. It's weird that they used the Robert Strong name once and then forget it. It's almost like they weren't planning out those later seasons of the show very well, but whatever. Alleras equals Sarella. I love that. Sarella is low-key one of the coolest characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. If you're talking about tertiary characters, Alleras Sarella is just cool as fuck. Because she's part of this whole mysterious Old Town plot with Marwyn the Mage, and Pate the Pig Boy, who's secretly a faceless assassin, and Samwell Tarly, and Aemon Targaryen pickling in brine, and meanwhile Euron Greyjoy is descending with all his eldritch power upon Old Town. All that stuff is badass, and Alleras is the Sphinx at the center of it, this mysterious character who is secretly one of the bastard daughters of Oberyn Martell, who is masquerading as a male maester of the Citadel for no reason other than she likes learning. There are theories about, she's secretly working for Doran Martell to, assassinate someone or do whatever. But I like the idea that not everyone's part of a political conspiracy. Some people just have interests and personal goals and want to pursue them. And Sarella being one of those people and just being like, I love learning, bitch, so I'm going to go to goddamn school, thank you very much, and I'm not going to let any gender barriers stop me from doing it. So I'll bind up my breasts and bring my bow and shoot some fucking apples, man. How's them apples? So that's how I feel about Sarella. And you could read the books and not notice that, ooh, Alleras, that's an interesting name. That is the same name as Sarella, who is also mentioned, who is kind of weird. I enjoy that very much. Thanks very much for the super chat from Haydox, who says book release date theory. Well, I mean, the theory at the top of the iceberg is, of course, Christmas 2021. The theory in the middle of the iceberg is 2029. After George dies, we find 3 different completed versions of the Winds of Winter with 3 different endings. And then the bottom of the iceberg is actually Winds of Winter has already been released. But we forgot it because our brains exploded. And so now all that we're experiencing now is our life flashing before our eyes in an infinite cycle of prolonged anticipation forever until we can achieve enlightenment and escape. Go check out Haydox's YouTube channel, by the way. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of intricate video editing going on there, which is pretty dang impressive, in my opinion. Okay. So Alleras Sarella, Jon is Robb's heir. This one I've got a bone to pick. I'm gonna do some picking with my bone right here. Because I don't think it's really a theory that Jon is Robb's heir. Like, what this refers to is in Storm of Swords, when Robb is doing all these battling and being king of the North and the Riverlands, Robb sensibly considers what should happen when he dies, because spoiler, he dies. And he and Catelyn have a discussion about who his heir should be. And Robb talks about, well, I think Jon should be my heir because he's cool and I trust him and he's my bro. And Catelyn says, oh, you should not legitimize Jon, because if you legitimize him and make him like a true-born legitimate heir, then his bloodline will forever be a threat to your bloodline, just like the Blackfyres. And that's one of the really early mentions of House Blackfyre that we get in the books. And so that conversation between Robb and Catelyn concludes with Jon saying, nah, Catelyn, I disagree with you. I'm going to make Jon my heir. He doesn't say exactly the words that Jon is my heir, but he very heavily implies it. And I think what we're meant to take from that scene is that Jon is written as Robb's heir in his will. They don't super explicitly state it, but like from the context of the scene, you can tell that that's what happened. So I don't think it's really a theory. What is a theory is what the implications of that might be. Like who has Robb's will, and who might enforce it, and what might that have to do with Howland Reed and Mage Mormont and Galbert Glover, and how might that assist Jon in eventually becoming King of the North? Like all of that is mysterious. That is interesting. But the fact that Jon is Robb's heir, I don't think is a mystery at all. Ola in the live chat says, when was the last time we saw anyone who knows about Robb's will? There was a big meeting when Robb sent Galbert Glover and Mage Mormont to Howland Reed in the Neck, and so they are sort of the people I think are important. But there were other people there. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think Jason Mallister might have been there. Ed Muir Tully might have been there. There's a bunch of sort of northern lords who are all sort of aware of this. It's not like it's a big secret. So, you know, it'll come up. All right, one step deeper down the iceberg, okay? The Manderlys will betray the Boltons. One of the coolest plot lines in Dance is the Winterfell plot line, with all the northern lords and the soldiers and the armies crowded in during this snowstorm during during A Dance with Dragons, and you got Theon as our point of view character, who's this broken ghost wandering the castle, and you've got all these fascinating characters like Barbary Dustin and Wyman Manderly and Roose Bolton and Hotha Horsebane Umber, and all these people of very uncertain loyalties and uncertain motivations, just all sort of circling each other in this claustrophobic, intense clusterfuck, with Stannis looming outside, marching towards the castle. Wonderfully tense writing, very slow boil, which of course is why these books are taking fucking forever to finish. Because George is just drawing it out. It's delicious the way he's drawing it out, but it's very slow. But it's very obvious that the Manderlys want to betray the Boltons because they come to blows at the end of the book. The Freys and the Manderlys are slinging barbs and arrows at each other, and Wyman Manderly gets some of his chins cut, but he's got so many chins that, you know, it's like a cat with 9 lives. Wyman Manderly has 9 chins, and he only dies after all of them have been cut. So Manderly is bleeding, but he seems to be alive. And you know, we've seen Wyman Manderly give his speech to Davos. The North remembers, and my son is home. And it's this whole Northern conspiracy thing where it's very obvious that Wyman is against the Boltons. And so what's happened at the end is that Roose Bolton has ordered Wyman Manderly and the Freys to go attack Stannis. It's exceedingly likely that the Manderlys will just stab the Freys in the back. So I think that's going to be enormously exciting. The Battle of Ice to open the Winds of Winter. Thanks so much for the super chat from Matthew Ross, who says George R. R. Martin plus ASX equals best YouTube channel, and that's a fact, not a theory. Hot damn, Matthew, thank you. Next theory. N plus A equals J. So this is one of those alternative R plus L equals J theories. N plus A is the theory that Ned Stark and Ashara Dane are the true parents of Jon Snow. We do know that Ned had like a crush on Ashara, and that they danced at the tourney of Harrenhal after Brandon asked for the dance for him. And there is, you know, there's a connection there, because someone, I think it's Edric Dane says that Ned and Ashara were in love. And there was also Barristan Selmy saying that a Stark dishonored Ashara at the tourney of Harrenhal. So, you know, and then Ashara committed suicide under somewhat mysterious circumstances. And so it's all a bit mysterious. And, you know, I totally can see how someone might think that, oh, maybe that's sort of what's going on. But here's the thing. Like, in the first book, A Game of Thrones, like, from Catelyn's perspective, she sort of tells the story of, like, you know, her husband Ned bringing this bastard home and how horrible she felt, and that this name Ashara Dane was whispered at Winterfell, and then Ned forbade anyone from naming Ashara Dane, and so everyone quietened up until then. So, like, the significance of that is that Ashara Dane is the first answer we're given at the start of the first book to the mystery of R plus L equals J. And that's how you know that it's not the correct answer. Like, the way George Martin works, and the way just mysteries in fiction work, you don't give someone the answer to the mystery right at the start after you've raised the question. You give them a red herring first. You give them a few different possibilities, and then at the end, you reveal the true answer. I don't know why I've got to explain this to you, bro. And the very fact that Ashara is, like, suggested as the true parent of Jon Snow right at the start, that's how you know it's a red herring. And that's how the real answer is R plus L equals J, which will be revealed later. And again, I can hear you saying, no, it's so obvious that it's too obvious to be R plus L equals J. It has to be Ashara and Ned, because that's more interesting and less obvious. But the only reason you think that it's too obvious is because of the fandom, and because it's been so many goddamn years since the last book. I think Ned and Ashara is definitely false. I think there could have been a relationship there. There could have been a crush. I think it's more likely that Brandon had sex with Ashara at the tourney of Harrenhal, but that's besides the point. I think that R plus L equals J is the truth, not N plus A. But it's a cool thing to think about, and the Danes are certainly a very interesting family. Oberyn is the Lord of the Waters. That's another theory. So Oberyn, what's his name? Oberyn, yeah. So Oberyn Waters, he's a Velaryon bastard, I think. And Cersei empowers him as her master of ships for no other reason than she thinks he's pretty and looks a bit like Rhaegar. So, this is one of many examples of like people crushing on Rhaegar years after he died, like John Connington. Rhaegar's ghost is so influential so many years after he died. But anyway, Oberyn is like kind of a piece of shit, and he just runs off with the very expensive warships that Cersei builds. And then a bit later, we hear about a pirate king called the Lord of the Waters, who's off raiding and pirating around the Narrow Sea. Seems a bit of a fucking coincidence, doesn't it? So I completely agree that Oberyn is the Lord of the Waters. And I think it should be here on the Iceberg chart as well. It's in the right spot because it's not super obvious. Like, it's a very minor thing. And it's entirely possible that we'll never hear about the Lord of the Waters again. I could entirely believe that it won't come up again. But it's a cool little minor theory, and I enjoy it. Lemongate. I haven't done like a really deep dive on Lemongate, and that motherfucker Alt-Shift-X should do a video on it sometime, I reckon. But Lemongate basically, so Daenerys Targaryen has these fond memories of a house with a red door in Braavos, and that's sort of her idealized past. Like so many other characters in A Song of Ice and Fire, she has like an idealized time when everything was better, and that's what she sort of wants to have come back. Glidus in the live chat says, if only someone had made some stylish videos digging into Oberyn. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Glidus, the YouTube channel, has some excellent videos about Oberyn Waters, so y'all should check that out. Glidus's channel. Dig it. Lemongate. So Daenerys has this house with the red door, and it had a lemon tree. And some clever arborists and herbologists and lemonologists out there have gone, hang on one gosh darn minute. Lemons don't grow in Braavos because Braavos is a cold climate, and lemons only grow in more temperate climates, say Dawn. And so and also, like, someone says no trees grow on Braavos. I think at some point someone says trees don't grow on Braavos. So people are like, man, this doesn't make sense. There's no way that there's a lemon in Braavos. Therefore, Daenerys must be misremembering somehow, and actually the house with the red door must have been in Dorne. And therefore, Daenerys' upbringing was involved somehow with a conspiracy with the Dornish, maybe related to the whole plan to marry Viserys to Arianne, with Doran's whole plot. And like maybe, but like also maybe just the Magister of Braavos or the Sea Lord of Braavos just like, paid a bit of money for like a really nice garden. Like in Castle Black they have those glass gardens, or in Winterfell they have those glass gardens that allow trees and fruit trees to grow even in a very, very cold climate. Maybe the Sea Lord of Braavos has something similar. I bet if you spend enough money you can get a lemon to grow wherever you goddamn want. But I'm not a lemonologist, so don't ask me. So yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion about Lemongate, honestly. I think it's probably bullshit because I don't really see what it adds to the story unless you want to get really ridiculous. But yeah, someone will have to do a deep dive and make a video about that sometime. I have seen that George Martin has commented on the whole Lemongate thing, like in the So Spake Martin archives. George has sort of gone, yeah, it is sort of interesting that there's lemons there, huh? So there could be some significance there, but yeah, I don't know for now. I'm not even going to weigh in that hard. Lyanna was the Knight of the Laughing Tree. Yeah, I think that's by far the best answer to the mystery of the Knight of the Laughing Tree. So if you'll remember, at the tourney of Harrenhal, there was a knight who stuck up for Howland Reed by defeating a few knights who had been rude to him, a mystery knight. And I think that the hints all line up that it's Lyanna, especially like the booming helmet thing. which would cover like the female voice of Lyanna Stark. And it's just a much more interesting answer than if it's Ned or Brandon or Benjen, you know. The night lamp theory, this is great. I think Brynden Beefish is one of the big proponents of the night lamp theory. It's the idea that, you know, with Stannis planning to attack Winterfell in A Dance with Dragons, it's the idea that Stannis is going to use a false beacon or a false light to draw the Frey army onto some weakened ice that his men have been fishing through, and will use like catapults or something to break the ice, and all of the Freys will fall in and die, and it'll be a glorious, clever 5,000 IQ victory for Stannis the Manus. And I think that's smart, and I'm convinced by it, because there are like some textual hints that are like very pointed, where Stannis used a false beacon strategy before in the past, and like the lighthouse on in the Crofters village, and like it all adds up. That guy Old Shift X did a video about it, in the Pink Letter video or the Hooded Man video. So yeah, I think the night lamp theory is a cert, and I think it's a really cool one. Oberyn poisoned Tywin. This one's kind of weird. So Tywin Lannister died because this fellow Tyrion shot him in the gut with a crossbow bolt, and that'll do it. But there is the theory that maybe before Tywin was shot by Tyrion, maybe Oberyn poisoned Tywin, because Oberyn, of course, really wanted Tywin dead, as revenge against him for the death of his sister Elia. My question is, like, what does that really add to the story? The biggest part of, like, evidence that people bring up for this theory is that Tywin's corpse really, really stank after he was dead and he was left in the church and whatever. And, like, I think that has a symbolic meaning, which is it shows how Tywin's legacy is crap, how he really just didn't accomplish anything when what he left behind was such a mess, like a family that hated each other and was you know, Tyrion and Cersei being against each other. There's no solid political future. It's all based on incest and lies and corruption, and I think the stench of Tywin's corpse is a symbolic representation of that rot and corruption that is Tywin's legacy, you know? So I don't think we need like an elaborate theory to explain that stench. And of course the fact that, you know, his bowels were pierced by the crossbow bolt, so of course he smells like shit. So, you know, I don't think we need Oberyn to poison Tywin, but if you want to believe that as your headcanon, I guess you can. I ain't got a strong opinion about that one, I suppose. Glidus in the live chat says, Oberyn arrived in King's Landing already planning to fight the Mountain. The Mountain was not in King's Landing at the time. So yeah, I think what some people believe is that Oberyn planned to poison Tywin. Oberyn planned to be accused of poisoning Tywin, and then planned to demand trial by combat with the Mountain so that he could kill the Mountain and Tywin and get all the revenge in the world. Which is like, it's a little bit elaborate for my tastes. But if you want to believe that, you can. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, we get contradictory mixed messages about what Oberyn and Duran's plan was at that point. Because like Duran at one point said that, oh, you know, I didn't want to let Oberyn go to King's Landing, but then he told me about the time at the Water Gardens where he like knocked big boys off people when they were playing in the Water Gardens, and he promised me that he was going to knock down a really big man again, which tells us that, yeah, like Oberyn went to King's Landing to fight the Mountain. But then there's like another thing that like Oberyn said. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. I think that I think a lot of the time George Martin isn't really sure. Like, we all know that George Martin has changed his plans dramatically as like the story has gone on, and there's lots of little sort of plot threads that don't necessarily add up. Like, I don't know, like the Valyrian steel knife and the cat's paw and fucking Hugh of the Vale, and like the whole Blackfyre thing, which George kind of pulled out of his ass towards the, like, there's a lot of stuff that was just sort of made up as he went along. And I think the Dawn plot is one of the big ones there. actually. So, like, I don't think even George Martin knows exactly what Duran and Oberyn were planning all along. And so I wouldn't necessarily build too elaborate a theory when we have so little to go by, you know? But if you want to have that as your headcanon, cool. Alright, we're going beneath the water level now, so fucking hold your breath. We're going deep on this one. Here's a good one. fAegon is a Blackfyre. And this is like low-key one of the best theories. Like, this might be my favorite A Song of Ice and Fire theory. So fAegon is what the fans call young Griff, who's the boy who Varys and Illyrio are trying to make king in A Dance with Dragons. And there's a lot of very good reasons to believe that he's not who they say he is. They say that young Griff is Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell, who was believed to have died in the sack of King's Landing, killed by Gregor Clegane. But Varys says, no, we actually secretly saved Aegon Targaryen by swapping him with a random drunk peasant's baby son in return for a jug of wine. So he's the pisswater prince, and then we swapped the babies just in case someone murdered him. But we didn't swap Rhaenys, his sister, because we don't need her, she's just a girl. We just swapped the baby Aegon, and I guess Elia Martell was just cool with that. Like, the mother of this baby was just fine with her baby being taken away by a sinister eunuch and his Pantoshi cheesemonger friend. Or maybe Elia didn't know. Do you expect Elia to not notice that her baby was replaced by a different baby? You think that wouldn't be noticed? You think you're gonna get away with stealing the queen's I have so many questions about the whole baby swap thing. But that's not even cutting the surface. The much bigger issue is that the Golden Company support young Griff, and the Golden Company for 5 generations have supported the House Blackfyre against the Targaryens. So why the fuck would they be supporting a Targaryen all of a sudden? And you could say, well, the Blackfyres are all dead, red or black, a dragon is still a dragon, they just want to go home, and yeah, like, sure, that, plausible deniability. But then you got all the weird Illyrio stuff, where he's like, ooh, I've got debts of affection to repay, and like, some oaths are written in blood, and the whole Sarah thing. Illyrio had a wife with suspiciously blonde hair and blue eyes are so often used as a cover for purple eyes that are of a Targaryen or Blackfyre, like Egg and Daemon II. So like, it's a great mystery because it's not certain. Like, you can't say with a certainty, because there is like sort of enough plausible deniability that, oh, maybe Aegon really is just a Targaryen. But like, the bigger stuff for me is that, Daenerys has that vision in the House of the Undying where she's warned about the Mummer's dragon, some kind of a fake Targaryen, and the false dragons described by Maquaro. All of that is extremely weird, unless Aegon is somehow a fake and he's not who he says. Glidus in the live chat says, completely believe that Aegon isn't Aegon, but why the fuck did Varys lie to Kevin if he was just going to kill him? Because yeah, in the epilogue of A Dance with Dragons, is that the epilogue of A Dance with Dragons? I think it is. Weird cliffhanger to leave us on for the last motherfucking decade. But yeah, Varys does tell Kevin that this kid is Aegon Targaryen, and he's the perfect prince, and it's going to be great, and then Varys kills Kevin. So you got to ask, well, why would Varys lie to Kevin? Why wouldn't Varys say that, oh, this kid's actually a Blackfyre, he's actually my homie Illyrio's son, or maybe he's my nephew, if Varys is the sibling of Sarah Blackfyre. Like, why would Varys lie? Why would Varys hide that? And I agree, that is weird. I think the answer is that, George didn't want the reader to know that young Griff is a Blackfyre yet. But I agree, that's like kind of a plot hole. But I'm not quite, I don't think that's enough to overturn the Blackfyre theory, with all the evidence around the Golden Company and Sarah and the Mummer's dragon and everything. But yeah, the alternative theory, like Christopher Jazzcat in the live chat says Dany is the Mummer's dragon. Which, yeah, that's like the alternative theory that you can take. If Daenerys is actually the daughter of fucking Ned and Ashara or whatever, You can take that alternative thing. I'm not sure why the Undying would be warning the Mummer's Dragon about the Mummer's Dragon, especially when Daenerys is the Slayer of Lies. Like, surely she can't be the Slayer of Lies and the lie, can she? Like, you gotta start doing some real 5D chess to use the alternative theories here. But I know there's people out there who do. All right. Next theory. Tyrion was the real target of the Purple Wedding. This one I'm not very read up on. I guess it's possible. I mean, Olenna put poison in Joffrey's cup, but when Tyrion was like being the cupbearer to Joffrey, like, yeah, maybe the intent was for Tyrion to be poisoned. I'm not sure why why Olenna would want Tyrion dead. I mean, I guess because Littlefinger was in on that plot, and it makes sense that Littlefinger might want Tyrion dead, seeing as Littlefinger screwed over Tyrion with the whole dragon bone dagger Valyrian Michigas that kicked off this whole war. So I could see why Littlefinger would want Tyrion dead. I'm not entirely sure why Olenna would want Tyrion dead. So yeah, I'd have to sort of read up on that theory. But I like it, I guess. It makes more sense to me that Joffrey was the target, but I like it. It could be cool. Okay. Mance wrote the pink letter. This one is I don't think Mance wrote the pink letter, because you've got to do some real fucking 15-dimensional chess about Mance writing the pink letter, knowing that it would make Jon angry, and knowing that Jon would come south with a bunch of Northmen and wildlings to help save Mance from the Boltons in Winterfell, which is an insane amount of foresight, and it doesn't even work because Jon gets stabbed as a result of deciding to ride south. And like, some of the evidence for Mance writing the pink letter is like some of the language and words that are used in the pink letter are words and language that are used by Mance, like calling the Night's Watchmen crows, and calling Melisandre a red witch. I think like there are some sort of interesting connections there. But I tend to think that the pink letter was just written by Ramsay. I don't really see what it adds. I do think Mance is up to some shit. Like Mance and Melisandre have some kind of secret reason for Mance being in Winterfell. Like, Jon thinks that, like there's something going on here several times. So I think there's definitely some shady shit, and whether that's Mance like searching for the Horn of Winter, or something, I don't know. So it's a very interesting mystery, like Mance's role in Winterfell at that point. I don't think he wrote the pink letter, but I'm looking forward to Mo XL. What up, Mo XL? So as we said at the start of this video, we're looking at an Iceberg theory that was posted 2 hours ago to Reddit by Mo XE. So yeah, cheers, Mo. Thanks for making this thing. Cool to have you here. I think the plan is we're gonna do several icebergs, like if we have the time for it. Anyway, so all right, next theory. Dany will go mad. So not really a theory in the show anymore, but it's something you could see happening in the books for sure, because Daenerys's entire character arc is about trying to balance, well, especially in A Dance with the Dragons, it's about trying to balance peace with her fiery, draconic Targaryen nature. Trying to conquer, trying to get shit done, unfortunately involves burning some people. Whereas, and yeah, in the show we see it happen. And I think that, the issue with the show was that it happened in the space of like 2 episodes, and like the actual moment where Daenerys started burning people it didn't really make any sense. We don't know why Dany was doing that, what she was thinking, what she was feeling. The whole bells thing is probably going to have a lot more significance in the books when we've got like John Connington, who fought in the Battle of the Bells and all of that. But the basic idea of Daenerys like burning some cunts is very likely. And I think that makes a lot of sense in the context of young Griff. Like, if young Griff becomes king, and if he is the mama's dragon held aloft by a cheering crowd, you know, young Griff might be the popular king, and Daenerys might be seen as the horrible, evil conqueror. You know, what with her Dothraki army and her eunuch soldiers, and you know, having blazed across Essos. Like, I think what George is setting up is that it's all about, you know, image and politics and appearances. And I think Daenerys, despite having worked so hard for so many years to be a good queen, is going to find that the image and of politics, it goes against her. And, you know, of course, like the specter of her father, the Mad King Aerys, and all of his burnings, and Summerhall and Aerion, and that fiery madness runs through the Targaryen bloodline. And there is a gosh darn lot of that madness in Daenerys's 5 generations of incest ass. So will Daenerys go mad? I think mad is probably not the right word, but I think that she will have a moment where she's like, am I willing to kill, to burn, to ravage King's Landing in order to become queen? Like where's the line? What am I willing to do in order to get this? And what is it worth being queen if the cost is all these deaths, you know? Like, I think those sorts of questions are going to be really key for Daenerys, and I think that she'll die. I don't think Daenerys will survive A Song of Ice and Fire. The way I'd like to see it happening is Daenerys burns King's Landing. And she doesn't do it because, like, she loves burning civilians. Like, she's just a big fan of war crimes, like in the fucking season 8 show. I think she's going to burn people as a sort of, like, you know, she takes a risk. She's like, I need to fucking kill young Griff. I need to wipe out his army in here, so I'm going to burn them, and I'm going to just accept civilian deaths as collateral. And that's going to be like, and then afterwards she's going to realize, oh god, that was rough. Because the worst goddamn thing about in the TV show was that Daenerys murdered all these people, and then she's like, and I'm proud of it, and I'm not backing down. She just gave this fucking fascist speech. We're going to take over everywhere. And then even when she talks to Jon privately, she doesn't even admit that she even did one iota of a war crime. Like, it's just so much fucking cognitive dissonance compared to the rest of her arc. I think that she will do horrible things, but I think that she will acknowledge it as an accident, or not as an accident, but she'll realize that she sort of did wrong to some point. And I think that her death will not be Jon putting her down. I think Daenerys will, to some extent, willingly sacrifice herself in order to forge Lightbringer, or in order to be the magical sacrifice required to defeat the White Walkers. I think that makes the most sense, because then there's the tragedy of Daenerys never getting the Iron Throne, but she does succeed in fucking saving the world and fulfilling her Targaryen destiny through her death, which is still like a bit of a downer, and it's not any more of a goddamn feminist empowerment story than season 8 turned out to be, unfortunately, or depending on perspective. But I think that Daenerys will do some burning, but I think that she'll die a hero. Like, I mean, maybe it'll be ambiguous, maybe it'll be complex, but, you know, in the Game of Thrones show, she died a villain. I think in the books, it'll be a bit more complicated than that. And maybe this is wishful thinking, but I think that Daenerys will die, to some extent, heroically. And I think she'll actually contribute to saving the world, unlike in the goddamn show. All right, pull up your pants, because we're talking about Tyrion Targaryen. This one, I don't know, I feel like deeply, deeply ambivalent about Tyrion Targaryen. This is the idea that Tyrion is not the son of Tywin Lannister and Joanna Lannister, but is actually the son of Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, and Joanna Lannister, because there is a bunch of stuff in the world of Ice and Fire that says that Aerys took certain liberties with Joanna during the bedding, it says that, like, Aerys, like, harassed Joanna and was sexually interested in her. I don't think that, you know, Aerys had sex with Joanna on her wedding night, because if that's what would happen, it wouldn't say there were liberties taken. It would be a big fucking deal that the king had sex with the wife of the Hand of the King. Like, that would be a big fucking issue. I think that what that means, taking liberties, means, you know, maybe he got a bit more gropey than is considered socially acceptable during the average bedding, or whatever. You're no son of mine is what Tywin says to Tyrion before he dies, and it's such a beautiful line. And I think the beauty of it is Tyrion's response when he says, "No, I am you writ small." When he points out that Tyrion is the embodiment of everything that Tywin is in terms of ruthless, cutthroat, Machiavellian politics and pride and power and weird sexual hang-ups. Like, all of Tywin's bullshit is Tyrion's bullshit. And the other thing that people bring up is, like, Jenna Lannister in Book 4 tells Jaime that what did she say? Tyrion is Tywin's son, not you, or something. Which is basically concurring with Tyrion, saying that Tyrion is the most like Tywin, which is ironic because Tywin sees Tyrion as not his true son because he's a twisted monkey demon, and sees Jaime and Cersei as his true children, even though Jaime and Cersei are kind of less like Tywin than Tyrion is. So, like, I think that relationship between Tyrion and Tywin is so beautiful and interesting because Tyrion is the true son of Tywin. And I think making Tyrion the son of Aerys undercuts that. I think it makes the story worse if that's true. But at the same time, it is weird that those liberties are sort of mentioned, and that connection between Aerys and Joanna is mentioned. I think George R. R. Martin is definitely fucking with us. And C. Bob points out in the live chat that, you know, Tyrion. Hang on, am I having a brain aneurysm? Who's older, Tyrion or Jaime? Yeah, no. Who's older? Tyrion or Jaime? And so it's Jaime is the oldest. No, Cersei is the oldest child, and then Jaime, and then Tyrion. Right? Am I insane in the membrane? Yeah, Tyrion is the young. Okay, yes. All right, that's irrelevant anyway. So yeah, I don't think Tyrion is a Targaryen. I mean, you can bring up, like, you know, Tyrion potentially having a connection with Daenerys' dragons, and like, ooh, maybe Tyrion has that Targaryen dragon blood, so he'll be a dragon rider, and he'll be one of the three heads of the dragon. But, like, even if Tyrion does end up riding a dragon, you don't need Targaryen blood to be a dragon rider. Because Nettles in the Dance of the Dragons rode a dragon, and she wasn't a Targaryen as far as we know. And there's too many bloody secret Targaryens as it is. So yeah, I don't think Tyrion is a Targaryen, but I think that George is definitely, like, deliberately sort of planting that idea. And I don't know, maybe that'll go somewhere, I don't know. Sweetrobin is... Yeah, of course Tyrion was the youngest child because Joanna died giving birth to him. Yeah. Anyway, so next theory, Sweetrobin is Littlefinger's son. So Littlefinger was in this love triangle with Lysa Tully and Catelyn Tully. Littlefinger was in love with Catelyn. Lysa was in love with Littlefinger. And there was one night where Lysa and Littlefinger had sex, but Littlefinger was so astronomically drunk that he thought, or he sort of chose to believe, that Lysa was Catelyn. So Littlefinger to this day believes that he had sex with Catelyn when in actual fact he had sex with Lysa, and that sort of complicates his sort of weird relationships with both of those women. So the theory, I suppose, is that during that time that they had sex, Robert Arryn was conceived. And I kind of like that idea, honestly. Like, there's kind of no evidence that I'm aware of, but, like, it's kind of fun that Littlefinger, like, has a kind of a legacy, and I assume doesn't know it. Like, I assume that if Littlefinger knew that Sweetrobin was his son, he would be, I don't know, not murdering him with fucking Sweet Sleep or whatever that drug is that he's giving to Sweetrobin. I don't think Sweetrobin's going to last long under Littlefinger's protectorship. But I kind of like that idea because Littlefinger's someone who's so into power. And if he had fathered the goddamn Lord of the Vale and not known it, there is a certain irony to that. Next theory, Quentyn is alive. This one's dumb. Like, I'm sorry, but it's dumb. Like, we had Quentyn's goddamn charred, eyeless corpse slowly dying over days and having some last words, and we saw the body, and yes, like, you can say, oh, maybe it was fucking Cletus Ironwood's corpse, and Quentyn is actually fine. But like the meaning of that story is about, it's a subversion of the hero's journey, and it's a tragedy about how Duran's goddamn overly elaborate plots ultimately got us nowhere. So you can weave all the tinfoil you want, but I think it would undercut the tragedy of Quentyn's story if he's secretly alive. And I think those heartbreaking scenes with like Missandei looking after Quentyn and all of that tragedy would be undercut if Quentyn is secretly alive. Grand Northern Conspiracy, like, I think, my take on this is that, Grand Northern Conspiracy implies that, like, everyone's in on it. That, like, Wyman Manderley and Howland Reed and Galbert Glover and Mage Mormont and the Wool and the Norrie are all talking to each other, and they're all on the same page. And they're all secretly plotting to rise up against the Boltons. And I don't think that's true. Like just for logistical reasons, if nothing else, it's very fucking hard to communicate and coordinate like that. So I don't think it's a grand Northern Conspiracy, but like there factually are Northern conspiracies happening. Like, it's a fact that Wyman Manderley is planning to betray the Boltons, and it's a fact that he wants Rickon Stark as a potential Lord of Winterfell. It's also a fact that Mage Mormont and Galbert Glover were sent to Howland Reed in the Neck, and that Galbert and Mage likely know that Jon is Robb's heir as king in the north, and that Howland Reed knows about Jon's true birth. So it's, and there's also the mountain clansmen and all the soldiers in Stannis' army who clearly are more loyal to Stark than they are to Bolton. So like, there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of Northmen who are loyal to the Starks and not to the Boltons. And so whether you want to call that a Grand Northern Conspiracy or not, I don't really care, but there's definitely some badass shit happening, and in the Winds of Winter there will be a lot of Northmen rising up to overthrow the Boltons and put a Stark back. I think that the difficult question is, which Stark do they want on the throne? Will it be Rickon Stark? Will it be Sansa Stark? Will it be Jon Snow? Because they sort of played with that stuff in the Game of Thrones TV show, with like Sansa ending up Queen in the North, but like sort of jostling with Jon Snow. And, I think there's a lot of potential for sort of issues there. And I don't really know what that looks like. I sure as fuck hope it doesn't look like it looked with Arya and Sansa in Season 7. Jesus Christ. But yeah, there are Northern conspiracies going on. So like, yeah, it's not the Grand Northern Conspiracy. It's more like the medium-sized Northern conspiracies is what I would say. Thanks very much for the super chat from Abby, who says, Quentyn is alive is the worst theory. I love the Grand Northern Conspiracy. It's probably not true, but I would love it to be. Yeah, I do not like the Quentyn theory. I think the Grand Northern Conspiracy is not as grand as we might think, but it definitely is a thing. Okay, next theory, A plus J equals J plus C. So this is related to what we were talking about before. A plus J, Aerys Targaryen and Joanna Lannister are the parents of Jaime Lannister and Cersei. And I don't like this for most of the reasons that I don't like Tyrion Targaryen. Like, it's not as egregious. Like, the whole sort of Tyrion-Tywin relationship is kind of more beautiful to me than the Jaime Cersei things. It is interesting that like Cersei has a certain Targaryen streak, what with like burning the Tower of the Hand with wildfire and wanting to build a white city on the other side of the river, which is word for word what Aerys wanted to do years ago. Like, it's pretty, Cersei's got like a Targaryen streak. But I don't think the Targaryens have a monopoly on being a pyromaniacal fuckwit, so I don't think Cersei needs to be a Targaryen to be the way that she is. I guess Jaime being a Targaryen might give him a certain amount of Azor Ahai cred, because there is the theory that like Jaime, what is it, Golden Hand, it translates in Valyrian to Azor Ahai or some bullshit like that. That would be fun. But like, again, we've got so many goddamn secret Targaryens. Can't someone just be a Lannister? And yeah, there's not really enough evidence. Like, yes, there's like the liberties that Aerys took at the wedding or whatever, but like, I that's not meant to mean the king had sex with the queen's wife, with the Hand's wife. Like, come on, there's definitely something fucky going on there, and George is definitely fucking with us in terms of bringing up this Lannister Targaryen stuff. But I'm not certain. But I don't think that Aerys and Joanna are the parents of Jaime and Cersei. Okay, next theory, Mormont's raven is being skin changed. That one's just true. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont on the wall has this kawaii pet raven who he feeds corn. And every now and then the raven does stuff that's like, hang on a minute, that's a little bit sentient. Because the raven like goes up to Jon and says, Jon Snow, King, Jon Snow, King. And it's like, you're a fucking raven. What are you talking about? And like the raven helps Jon win the election to become Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. By like flapping around and saying Jon Snow and whatever. And also like the really interesting bit is when Jon Snow is having a dream where he's on the wall and he's fighting dead men with a blade, and he's armored in black ice. And then he hears the raven saying fire, fire, fire or something, and he sees an eagle, but then he wakes up out of the dream and it's actually the raven on his chest, like cawing in his face, which suggests that there's like a connection between the raven and the dream. And what we can infer is that Bloodraven, off in his cave in the far north, is walking into the raven and is using the raven as a conduit to give Jon a dream about the threat of the White Walkers, to try and remind him that, yo, this is important, this is your destiny. Because, yeah, I think that it makes sense that, you know, Bloodraven is steeped in prophecy. He's trying to save the world from the White Walkers. And Jon Snow, as a Targaryen and possibly Azor Ahai, is key to that whole goal. And so Mormont's Raven is a good way to keep an eye on things, you know? So I like that theory a lot. I think Mormont's Raven is being skin changed by Bloodraven. Okay, next theory, HS equals HR. This one I kind of hate. That gormless dweeb Alt-Shift-X made a video about HS equals HR many years ago. It is far too credulous. So some people think that the High Septon, the High Sparrow, is secretly Howland Reed. On the basis of, like, they have similar haircuts and calluses, and maybe Howland Reed is using the High Sparrow to, like, destabilize the Baratheon Lannister realm or whatever. I think it's dumb and I hate it. Next theory. The Faceless Men caused the doom. So this one's cool because it's kind of ambiguous. So, like, in book 4, Arya and the Kindly Man have a conversation about the origins of the Faceless Men. And the Kindly Man says that, yeah, like back in the day, we were slaves in the 14 Flames, the volcanoes where the Valyrians mined all of their gold and stuff. And it was horrible. So the first Faceless Man was a guy who answered the prayers of the slaves who wanted to die, and he killed them to give them the gift of death and mercy and salvation from suffering. And Arya's like, what the hell? Why would you kill the suffering slaves? Why wouldn't you kill the slave masters instead? And the Kindly Man replies that, well, he would kill them as well, but that's a story for another time, best told to no one. So that's like, ooh, what does that mean? Because, like, the simplest interpretation is that maybe the Faceless Men went on to assassinate a bunch of slave masters, and maybe there was a slave revolt or something. But, like, the bigger, more tantalizing possibility is, what if the Faceless Men somehow caused the mysterious doom of Valyria that destroyed the Valyrian Empire 400 years ago? That would be pretty cool, because, like, it is a mystery what caused the doom. Maybe the Faceless Men are the answer, and there is all sorts of sort of interesting possibilities around, like, the sorcerers who were preventing the 14 Flames from erupting. Maybe they were assassinated. Maybe that prophecy about Lannister gold had something to do with it. It's a whole thing. But you know, it's not. We shouldn't be too certain about it. It's not certain that the Faceless Men caused the doom. There's a lot of ambiguity, and you can interpret the Kindly Man's words in several different ways. So I like that theory a lot. But there's still a lot of question marks there, and I hope that we have answers, because it's the sort of mystery that George Martin doesn't really need to answer. It's not central to, like, the Doom was 400 years ago. We don't really need to know the answer to that question. But I like it a lot, and I hope that we do get an answer. Thanks so much for the super chat from Ultimate Fatty, who says, "Corn." That's what I would say if I was a raven. Okay, we're going deeper. We're getting pretty deep indeed. The Dornish master plan. So I believe that I'll say the name. Preston Jacobs is a YouTuber who traffics in some elaborate conspiracy theories, and I think I have seen Preston's Dornish master plan videos. And look, I think that the conclusions are not sufficiently supported by the evidence. There's a lot of stuff about how, like, the brave companions are secretly working for Doran Martell because Qyburn did a thing. Like, I don't know, it was a long time ago, but I think the point of Doran is that his schemes failed because they were too patient and too slow and too elaborate. And I think you don't solve that problem by inventing an even more elaborate, even more intricate conspiracy that involves, like, what, the death of his son Quentyn and, like, Arianne. And like the point is that Doran doesn't have his house in order. He's not very successful, and making him secretly in control of the fucking High Sparrow and Shagwell the Fool. I don't think that makes the story better. I mean, I will say, like, you know, to Preston Jacobs' credit, it takes a lot of intelligence and a lot of creativity and a lot of imagination and a lot of knowledge about A Song of Ice and Fire in order to concoct the theories that he does. Like, credit where credit's due. What Preston Jacobs does, he's really good at it. I don't think what he does is interpret the text in a way that is accurate. You know, no offense, not trying to be mean. I think there's a lot of cool and interesting connections raised by Preston Jacobs' videos, but I do not believe that the Brave Companions are working for Doran Martell. And again, like, I haven't watched those videos in a long time, so to give a real assessment, I'd have to do that. So, you know, respect, but I do not rank the Dornish master plan very highly. Next theory, Grand Maester conspiracy. So this is the theory that the Maesters killed the dragons or something, because Marwyn the Mage in Book 4, he says to Sam, hey, you better not tell the Maesters about, you know, this prophecy of Azor Ahai. You better not talk to them about dragons, because the world that the Citadel is building has no room for magic or prophecy or dragons. And who do you think killed the dragons last time around? Gallant dragon slayers with big swords? So he implies that the Maesters in the Citadel killed the dragons, which seems like nonsense, because we know that the dragons were killed in the Dance of the Dragons in the Civil War. The dragons were killed by other dragons mostly, and the storming of the dragon pit and all of that. I think that, you know, the more generous interpretation is that maybe the dragon's eggs were poisoned by the Maesters. Like, it's mentioned that Maesters poured over the dragon eggs in the years after the Dance of the Dragons, supposedly to find ways to hatch them. But maybe the Maesters actually secretly poisoned the dragon eggs, or, you know, caused them to not hatch or something like that. That's kind of cool. I could see that maybe being a thing. You've also got, like, Barbary Dustin, who really hates the Maesters, and she calls them the Grey Rats, and she says that they might manipulate the words of letters sent between lords and so on. And, you know, I think there's potential for that too. I mean, she also alleges that, Maester Wallace convinced Rickard Stark to marry his kids to the Tullys and the Arryns so that the Southern Ambitions plot could happen to overthrow Aerys. And, like, I could see that happening. Like, it's basically a fact that the Maesters may have their own agendas. Like, we see that with Pycelle, you know? Like, Pycelle lets Jon Arryn die, and Pycelle betrays Aerys Targaryen by telling him to let the Lannisters in. Like, the Maesters are people, and they have their own agendas. The question is just whether, like with the Northern conspiracy, is it a grand conspiracy? Is it totally coordinated? Are they all in on it? And I think the answer to that is likely no. Like, the Dance of the Dragons was like 150 years ago or whatever. I don't think there's been one continuous conspiracy since then. But do the Maesters have their own biases against magic and against dragons? Like, is that a thing? Yeah, probably. So I think there's, some Maester shenanigans going on, but I don't think that they're all like actively out to get everyone in the way that Marwyn the Mage says. I think part of the reason why Marwyn the Mage tells Sam what he does is to get Sam to shut up so that Marwyn has a monopoly on that information, Like, Marwyn is trying to have influence on people. And I think the way he does that is by, controlling information and maybe intimidating Sam against talking to other Maesters is a way that he does that. Yeah, like Poncho in the live chat says, the Maesters are all taught the same ideals and such, Like, yeah, that's the thing. Like any institution has values and has biases and has ideas in certain directions, and it makes perfect sense that the academic experts who on the material secular realm probably not a big fan of dragons, especially the dudes who like write the history books, and they might have noticed a little pattern going on. If you read enough Game of Thrones history books, you start to realize, hang on a minute, these dragons keep on killing people. These dragons keep starting fires and running amok. Maybe dragons are a bad idea. Like, yes, that is absolutely a conclusion that you would expect the historians of Westeros to reach. So absolutely, I'm sure many Maesters really don't like the idea of dragons. But have they been secretly assassinating and poisoning dragons and mixing up the letters and doing whatever in like a big coordinated way? I think not. But I do think it is plausible that like maybe some of the powerful Maesters might have influenced the Southern Ambitions alliance between the Starks and the Arryns and the Tullys and the Baratheons, which eventually brought down Mad King Aerys. So like, yes, I do think that it's possible that they have, influenced politics in that way to try and get rid of the Targaryens. So I do think that there are probably Maester conspiracies, but not like a grand one. Bence in the live chat says, can you share this image? So yeah, we said a couple of times, this was posted to Reddit by Mo Exy, and you can search this and you'll find it. We'll put a link to all of the icebergs after the video. Froggy Woggy in the live chat says, I don't think most of Preston's theories are intended as fully serious. The idea is more that they're thought-provoking and partially true. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of how I see Preston Jacobs' videos. Like, I don't think that... again, I haven't seen all of them, but like the ones that I've seen, I don't think that they're true, but there's definitely like interesting ideas there, and there's some truth in them, and I think that it's interesting to think about. That's sort of how I see it, I think. Loras isn't really injured. This one's fun. So in book 4, Cersei sends Loras Tyrell to besiege Dragonstone to take it back from Stannis Baratheon's remaining men. And she doesn't let Loras come back to help defend Marjorie against the accusations against her until Dragonstone is taken. So Loras is forced to rush into an assault on Dragonstone, a very dangerous assault on Dragonstone. And as a result, he's doused in burning oil and has all his pretty skin burned off, which is very unfortunate for such a handsome Knight of Flowers. So it's this really tragic, horrible moment that really makes Cersei look even more horrible than she already is. But some people are like, well, hang on a moment. The Tyrells are a pretty clever bunch. They're not above a bit of lying, a bit of skullduggery, so maybe they claim that Loras is injured when he's actually not, as a way of sort of keeping Loras out of Cersei's clutches. And I think that's kind of like that idea. I don't think it's likely to be true, but I think it's very interesting. Like, we don't have much to go by. It's hard to know for sure. Loras Tyrell is like a minor enough character that maybe he really will be just taken off the board by being burned to shit. It's interesting to compare Loras to Willis, right? His brother Willis Tyrell, who is crippled. I wonder if Loras could become a similar figure if he survives his burns. Although, like, I don't think he's likely to survive his burns because I think he's in like a very critical condition. So I don't know. It's interesting. And of course, this is the comparison to the Game of Thrones TV show where Daenerys just lands on Dragonstone and it's completely empty. No one's bothered to like inhabit one of the most powerful and strategically important castles in Westeros, which is so silly. But yeah, in the books, it's an actual issue and there's stuff going on. Next theory, Frey Pie. And this one's actually like fucking great. I love the Frey Pie theory because it's Wyman Manderly at his Wymanest and most Manderlyest. When he's just like talking smack, eating pie, just being an absolute boss bitch in Winterfell, just like talking just straight up treason to the face of Roose Bolton, while he's secretly planning his the North remembers and my son is home. He's gonna beat the shit out of the Boltons, but at the same time, he's getting revenge on the Freys because one of Manderly's sons was killed in the Red Wedding. Is that right? I think one of his sons was captured and one of his sons was killed, is how it happened. What was it? Wendell and Wimmis and Wooble, whatever their names are. But the point is that Wyman Manderly had these 3 Freys. I think it was like Rhaegar Frey, and one of them was probably called Walder, and one of them was probably called Steve. I don't remember the names, but there were these 3 Freys who left White Harbor, and Wyman presented them with gifts. He gives them these 3 horses so that they can ride off to Winterfell or wherever. And mysteriously, they don't come back. These 3 Freys die. How strange, how unfortunate, what happened to them? And then at Winterfell, Wyman has this great big meat pie, and he's like, hey, this pie is goddamn delicious. Everyone should eat some of this pie. And then he plays the song of the Rat Cook. He gets one of his singers to play the Rat Cook, which is a story about cannibalism. I'm a bit hazy on the details, but it basically, Wyman is forcing the Freys to unknowingly eat the flesh of their family as part of a perverse, abominable act of revenge against the family who killed his son. It's just incredibly badass. What are the names of the Freys? Wimbledon and Westerly Frey, Wimmis and Wooble, Walder and John. Glidus says it's Rhaegar, Simon and Jared, but I like Wimmis and Wooble. But yeah, it's definitely cannibalism. Because there's this whole sort of rising theme of cannibalism. Like, Bran eats people on several occasions. Bran and Mira get fed some Night Watch mutineers by Cold Hands, and it's like, oh, it tastes like pork. And then Bran possibly eats Jojen, but that's a theory further down the iceberg. So yeah, I Wyman absolutely fed some Freys Frey Pie. And they did that in the show. They did that in the show when Arya feeds Walder Frey the flesh of his son Black Walder Frey in a pie, and you can see the toe in the pie and everything. So yeah, that fucking confirmed. Wunwun Frey, Womble Frey, love it. Yeah, it's for real. And I think one of the coolest things about Frey Pie is that it manages to make us cheer for an act of murderous, evil, vengeful cannibalism. Like, this really shows how partisan as readers we have become. We are so on the side of the Starks and the North against the Boltons. Which just goes to show, like, it's that's the power of writing. It makes us feel so passionately loyal to a fictional family. It's amazing. All right, now we're starting to get pretty deep here. We're getting real spicy with some of these theories, because now we're going to talk about Mance equals Rhaegar. Oh, shoot me. Somehow this is the theory that I think is the most like offensive to my sensibilities, because like the tragic death of Rhaegar Targaryen is such an important, symbolic and like plot moment in the entire saga. And having Rhaegar secretly be alive for the last 20 years as a fucking wildling king is just so fucking bizarre and inconsistent and undercuts so much of the tragedy that I can't stomach it. I mean, what's even the evidence? Like, Rhaegar and Mance are both singers. They both play the harp. Is that... Rhaegar is described as like very, very beautiful. Mance is never described as beautiful. They're both charismatic leaders, but Mance, I don't know, he doesn't seem concerned about prophecy in the way that Rhaegar does, and he doesn't have purple Targaryen eyes. Like, I mean, I haven't read Mance equals Rhaegar stuff in a long time. Like, maybe there's theories, maybe there's evidence, but like on the face of it, Mance equals Rhaegar seems just offensively stupid to me. What would Mance be doing up there? There is also a theory, I believe, that Mance is secretly Arthur Dayne, which is equally stupid. I mean, Mance already has an origin that's already kind of interesting, which is that he was a Night's Watchman, and he was a Night's Watchman who was the son of a wildling and a watchman. I think, is that right? I might not get that right. I need to brush up on my Mance lore. But yeah, Mance is not Rhaegar. Let's fucking keep our pants on, all right? Next theory, Jaime is the valonqar. In my opinion, this is a poorly played... This should be way up here. Way up here. Like, Jaime being the valonqar... Or maybe it should be like third rung. It should be like here. Because the valonqar thing is that Maggie the Frog, the Woods Witch, told Cersei Lannister... that your kids will die and you'll be supplanted by a younger, more beautiful queen, and the valonqar will choke the life from you. And Cersei thinks that Tyrion is the valonqar, because valonqar means little brother, and so she's paranoid about Tyrion and hates Tyrion and tries to have him killed. And it's the most just perfect George R. Martinian irony for the brother that she suspected all along to not be the right one, because everyone in this story misinterprets prophecies and dreams. And it's actually Jaime who will kill her. And that makes perfect sense within Jaime's character arc, because his arc is about redemption. And the ultimate act of redemption will be him rejecting his obsession and addiction, his self-destructive love of Cersei, by killing Cersei. And I think that's a beautifully like tragic and fitting and appropriate death. And they sort of fucked it in the TV show. Oh my! I don't know how they got every single thing wrong in the show. Like if it was by random, if all of the scenes were just darts thrown at a dartboard, they would have done a better job than Game of Thrones season 8. How did they fuck it up that badly? Because in the show, Jaime doesn't kill Cersei, he just chooses to die with her, and she's like, I renege on my redemption arc. I declare not being redeemed, and Jaime just decides to die with Cersei, and it's like, wow, that's depressing. And you can sort of see it coming, because the show never mentioned the valonqar prophecy. It conspicuously didn't mention the valonqar part of Maggie's predictions. So you could sort of see it coming that they weren't going to necessarily do the same thing. But like if Jaime doesn't strangle Cersei to death in the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, like I'll eat a goddamn ham sandwich, because I know that the internet will keep the receipts and make me do whatever I say, so I'll make it something easy. But yeah, Jaime is the valonqar. It's too cool. And again, like just like the R+L=J denialists, some people will say that, oh, it's too obvious that Jaime is the valonqar. But that's mostly because we have the fandom, we have the theories, and we've had 10 years to think about it since Dance. I don't think the valonqar is meant to be all that obvious. I think that it's true. Thanks for the super chat from Matthew Ross, who says Wopus and Wopal Pie does sound kind of tasty. I would be all over it. And thank you for the super chat from Cardinal Doomsday, the one and only. Okay, next theory. Quaithe equals Shiera Seastar. Man, we're getting spicy. Getting pretty deep. I love this theory. I love the idea that Quaithe is Shiera Seastar. I think that it's probably not true, if only because Shiera Seastar has conspicuous heterochromia. Her eyes are different colors. And I think that if Quaithe's eyes were different colors, it would have been mentioned, because her eyes are all you can goddamn see through her mask. I'm like, yeah, maybe Shiera as Quaithe is using a glamour. You know, maybe she's using some kind of magic to disguise herself. The whole reason why this is plausible is that Shiera is said to have bathed in blood to keep her youth, and her mother used sorcery to stay young or whatever. So, there are reasons to think that Shiera may have been a sorcerer who had access to magic that could extend her life. And the real reason why I think this theory is really cool is the potential for the ongoing relationship between Bloodraven and Shiera Seastar, because they had this fucked up incestuous love. They were like this power couple ruling Westeros. And what if now they have graduated to an even higher level of fucking puppet mastery? If Bloodraven, as the Three-Eyed Crow, is this like old god sorcerer, you know, using his influence over Westeros, at the same time that Shiera, as Quaithe, is similarly using like glass candles to like peer into Daenerys's mind and Daenerys's dreams, just like Bloodraven enters Bran's dreams and Jon's dreams. And Shiera is using the same sort of modus operandi, the same methods, the same similar sorcery, to achieve a lot of the same goals as Bloodraven, working together in the two different continents to manipulate their way into creating Azor Ahai and salvation from the White Walkers. So, like, I love that theory. I think it's really cool and badass, and I love that, like, it doesn't need to be true, but it can be true, and it like adds value when it's true. So, yeah, I really like this theory. Quaithe equals Shiera Seastar. I think honestly, it's like 50-50 whether it's true. One of the other reasons to think that it's true is that Quaithe is associated with starlight. Daenerys has a vision of her as a sea of stars above her or something, and Shiera's name is Seastar. And doesn't am I tripping balls, or does Quaithe mean stars in Dothraki or some shit? I'm not up to snuff with my fictional linguistics, but because isn't the bleeding star in Dothraki the like something quiac or something? Like in the Dothraki language, the phrase bleeding star, I'm pretty sure there's a word in there that sounds like the word Quaithe, which again connects it to stars. I'm sure someone in the live chat can let us know. Anyway, so yeah, I love this theory. It's not definitely true, but I like it a lot. Okay, now we're really fucking getting into it, pals. Sansa is Littlefinger's daughter. This is so wrong. So we talked before about that whole thing about how like Littlefinger had sex with Lysa and thought it was Catelyn. I guess this theory is saying that, well, I mean, when did Littlefinger and Catelyn have sex? Are we saying that Sansa is secretly Lysa Tully's daughter with Littlefinger? Because it would have to be that, because it couldn't be like unless Littlefinger snuck into Winterfell and had sex with Catelyn while she was married to Eddard, which doesn't seem very likely. I don't see how Littlefinger could be Sansa's father, unless Sansa is the child of Littlefinger and Lysa. That I could maybe, but then how did they sneak Sansa into Winterfell to be raised as Catelyn's daughter? Look, I've got a lot of questions. I've got a lot of questions. Maybe I've got to look up whatever this theory is. It sounds deranged. And of course the implications now, like, you know, like Littlefinger kissed Sansa in the Eyrie. Does Littlefinger not know that Sansa is his daughter, or is this just a whole other godforsaken breed of incest that we're going to have to deal with? I don't like it. I don't want it. What does Jon Snow say in season 8? I don't want it. That's how I feel about this theory. I don't want it. Next theory, Euron is a fraud. So this is like a pretty legit thing to think until the Forsaken Winds of Winter sample chapter was released. Because like there's this great moment where Euron says, I've sailed to Valyria where no man dares to sail and I'm such a badass. And then Roderick says, have you? Did you? And I like that a lot because, you know, Roderick the Reader is this skeptic and he's this intelligent man and he's like, is this fucking what's the term? Snake oil salesman? Like, Euron is a goddamn carny, you know? When Euron gets up the Iron Islands and he's like, hey guys, have you ever wished that you had a magic weasel who could whisper secrets and do tricks? Well, for the low price of making me your king, I'll give it to you, you know? Like, Euron's a fucking huckster, you know? He's a goddamn 2-bit con man. Because everything he says is a lie. He doesn't care about the Iron Islands. He doesn't care about the old way. He only cares about his own self-aggrandizement and his own power. So, like, up until the Forsaken, you would be forgiven for thinking that Euron was a fraud, that he's full of shit. But I think the Forsaken does a sort of a double twist. Because in the Forsaken, we realize, oh my god, Euron is legit. I mean, he's not what he says. He's more than what he says. He's worse than what he says. He's not just like a brutal, power-hungry pirate. He's a fucking eldritch hell priest of an apocalypse looming from the depths and on high. He's calling the goddamn red comet down to become the Bloodstone Emperor reborn, and he's gonna sacrifice every goddamn drop of blood in Westeros to do it. He is horrifying. He is a villain from an anime. He's a goddamn nightmare, and that's sort of the like, whoa, holy shit moment that we see in the Forsaken. So, you know, is Euron a fraud? I think he's a liar. I think he's a cheat. I think he's full of shit. But I think that he's much and more. His power is real. He's got the Valyrian steel armor, and Aeron Greyjoy has that moment of going, "Oh God, he has been to Valyria. It's legit. It's real." What's that line that fucking Han Solo has in the Star War? It's true, all of it. That's like the one thing that I like about the new trilogy of Star Wars movies. Like, it honestly is very evocative, in my opinion, when Han Solo says, all that stuff about the Jedi, all those legends you've heard, it's true, all of it. I think that's wonderfully evocative. In the same way that Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope, when he says, oh, we fought in the Clone Wars, and it was a pretty wild time with all those goddamn clones, bro. And I was like, ooh, that's so evocative. You know what's not evocative? You know what's not sparking the imagination? Star Wars Episode 3, Attack of the Clone 2, whatever. I don't care. Go away with your Star Wars. I've had enough of them. Just moving on. Jon will marry Sansa. Now, all right, I'll take a drink for this one. So I hate to say it. I hate to break it to you, but there's actually some pretty interesting evidence that Jon might marry Sansa. Because of the Ashford tournament. So in the Hedge Knight Duncan Egg novella, there is a tournament where people are trying to be the champion for Lady Ashford. I'm trying to... This is off the top of the dome. I don't remember the details here. But there's like a Tyrell and a Baratheon and a Targaryen, Valar Targaryen, and a Lannister who are like the final champions in this tournament. And those 4 people correspond to the people who Sansa Stark is betrothed to. Is that right? Because there's Tyrion the Lannister, there's Joffrey the Baratheon, and then up next comes a Targaryen, is what is suggested by the Ashford tournament. And so, who is the Targaryen who Sansa is going to marry if that pattern holds true? And one potential answer, I guess, is young Griff, but like young Griff is probably not a Targaryen. Another possible answer is Daenerys Targaryen. I, for one, would love to see a Sansa-Daenerys marriage, but I don't see that happening. So maybe Sansa and Jon will get married. And I hate to say it, but that would solve a lot of political problems. Like, in the Game of Thrones show, like, they raised that issue of, like, Jon has a claim to Winterfell, but so does Sansa, and they both sort of make sense as political leaders of the North. Yeah, Harding. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about Harry Harding. Thanks, guys, in the chat. There's also a Harding, and that's kind of the linchpin of this theory, because House Harding is a very fucking obscure character. And the fact that there just happens to be a Harding as one of the last champions of the Ashford tournament, and Harry Harding is like a suitor to Sansa in the current plotline in the Vale, bit of a fucking coincidence, right? Like, it's not a big deal that, like, oh, there's a Baratheon and there's a Lannister and there's a Targaryen, they're like the biggest houses. But a Harding is so obscure, and Harding just happens to be one of the other suitors to Sansa Stark. So, like, I don't know what to tell you guys. It seems like too much of a coincidence I think that the Ashford champions do parallel Sansa's suitors, and so given that the last champion is a Targaryen, I think it's kind of compelling. I think Sansa might have a Targaryen suitor. And you could argue that it could be that could be young Griff, because, Joffrey in this pattern counts as a Baratheon, even though he's actually technically not a Baratheon. So maybe you could count young Griff as the Targaryen who Sansa will marry, even though he isn't really a Targaryen, he's probably a Blackfyre. Or hell, maybe he is a Targaryen. So yeah, we don't need to go the Jon Sansa incest route. It may be that young Griff is who Sansa will marry. Although I don't think that's true, because I think Arianne will marry young Griff. So, look, I don't know what to tell you. Either Jon marries Sansa, or it's a massive fucking coincidence, the champions of Ashford. It's a very interesting, weird thing. And if you think that incest is too weird, George Martin in the original 1993 draft outline of A Song of Ice and Fire said that there'll be a love triangle with Arya and Jon. Arya and Jon will fall in love. And if that is something that George was planning on doing, then Jon Sansa doesn't seem as crazy. So, I don't know what to tell you. I think that there might be something in that theory. Maybe it's like an abandoned plotline. Maybe, George Martin has moved past his incest phase a little bit, and that won't be a thing. But yeah, it's a little spooky how convincing that is. Alright, here's some real shit. Euron was a student of Bloodraven. And I think that you have to shout out poor Quentyn at this point. Emmett Booth, aka Poor Quentyn, is a pretty well-known Song of Ice and Fire essayist, podcaster, theorist, and he has done a lot of great work writing about Euron Greyjoy's Eldritch Apocalypse and interpreting what Euron's storyline is all about. And he basically, Poor Quentyn was basically talking about all the Forsaken stuff before the Forsaken was released. All the stuff about Euron trying to transform himself into a dark god. Poor Quentyn was all over that shit. I don't normally shout out specific people with specific theories, because normally Song of Ice and Fire theories, lots of different people independently come up with them at once, and lots of different people post the same things on lots of different websites. But in this particular case, I think Poor Quentyn needs credit, because Poor Quentyn was all over it. And Poor Quentyn argued for many years that Bloodraven was Euron's teacher, and that's why he calls himself Crow's Eye, because he's his third eye was opened by the three-eyed crow, and that's how Euron has become obsessed with magic and power, and that's how Euron became so fucked up. And he's one of the other dreamers who's mentioned by in Bran's dream, in Bran 3, A Game of Thrones, when he learns to fly and his third eye opens and he sees the other dreamers impaled on spikes of ice. So yeah, I think it's almost certainly true, and it's enormously cool as a theory, because it adds all these sort of background relationships and backstory. It doesn't need to be true, but it can be true, and I think those are some of my favorite theories, because it really adds to stuff without being like George wouldn't even need to reveal this. George doesn't even need to tell us at any point that Euron was Bloodraven's student, but I think it's probably true. So yeah, I like that theory a lot. Next theory, Jojen Paste. I love this one as well. So Bloodraven, his entire backstory as a Targaryen bastard, Hound of the King, it's all about doing brutal things, dishonorable, murderous things for the sake of the realm. And his priorities have changed when he went from Hand of the King to Lord Commander of the Night's Watch to a weird zombie tree plugged into the weirwoods, and his perspective has shifted from the political conflict between the Targaryens and the Blackfyres to the larger, more metaphysical conflict between the White Walkers and the humans, the living and the dead. But his methodology is still the same. He's still a cold-ass Machiavellian motherfucker who will do deeply immoral things for the sake of the quote-unquote greater good. For example, he lures a crippled 10-year-old boy into the frozen north through all these dangers in order to turn him into a vessel for his magical shenanigans. Bran Stark did not want to become a fucking tree wizard. He thought that the three-eyed crow would be a kind old wizard who would heal his legs. That's the quote in A Dance with Dragons. So it's evil of Bloodraven to have lured Bran all this way. So clearly this is same old Bloodraven. He does evil shit for magical purposes. And as we know, magical power comes from sacrifice. So the sacrifice of Jojen might be necessary to empower Bran more, especially given that Jojen is he has the green side. He has special blood, Crannogman blood, Child of the Forest blood. And of course, Jojen is really despondent towards the end of A Dance with Dragons, and he has said before that he knows how he's going to die, but he doesn't say how. And in the TV show, Jojen randomly gets blown up and he just gets cut out in a really weird, unceremonious way, which makes me think that they wanted to cut out the Jojen Paste thing. Because in A Dance with Dragons, Bran gets fed a weird paste that tastes like blood, and then he drinks it, and then his magical powers give him a crazy trip. So the theory is that paste it's not just weirwood paste, it's weirwood and Jojen's corpse. And that continues the theme of cannibalism that we have with like the Frey Pies and Bran being fed the Night's Watch mutineers and all of that stuff. So I think it's very likely true, and I think that it's great, because I think maybe when Bran finds out about the Jojen Paste, he might turn against Bloodraven, and he might start to realize, oh god, like what horrible things are going on. Alan in the live chat says, is Jojen dead? There is no mention in the books. Yeah, as far as I remember, the by the end of A Dance with Dragons, Jojen, yeah, he's not dead as far as we know, but he has disappeared. Like, we don't see him after Bran eats the paste. Like, I think Bran eats the paste like right at the end. So yeah, I think the idea is that Jojen has been quietly turned into paste, and like Mira is real like fucking upset about that. But yeah, I think Jojen Paste is true. And I think it's really fucking cool. Next theory, Theon is the hooded man. That's just canon. Well, no, it's not. I think the hooded man is actually a really the hooded man is weird because there's so many different possibilities that could be true. Like, there are so many legitimately compelling possibilities. Like, is the hooded man fucking Gelbert Glover or Harwin or one of those guys, or Hal, out like working on some Grand Northern conspiracy skull and dagger bullshit? Or is it just like a figment of Theon's tortured imagination and like a representation of the man he used to be? What is the hooded man's purpose? Because if the spearwife wildling women in Winterfell are the people doing the murders, then what is the hooded man for? I think it's a really genuine mystery. And I don't like to acknowledge that Alt Shift X fella, but Alt Shift X does have a pretty good video about the hooded man. So I'd advise you watch that if you want to know more. But yeah, I honestly, it's inconclusive. I don't think that I can't be sure who the hooded man is, but I think there's a lot of different interesting possibilities. So I'll leave it with that. Euron versus Daario. That's an example of where Alt Shift X fucked up. That guy didn't know what he was doing when he made that Euron equals Daario video. That video is far too credulous and gives far too much credit to the theory that Euron equals Daario. Because, like, there are some, like, weird connections and similarities between Euron and Daario. Like, Daario fights in a sellsword company called the Storm Crows, and Euron is called Crow's Eye, and he says he is the Storm. And they're both, like, they both sort of sail around. They're both warriors. They're both sort of cutthroat and cunning and handsome, and they're both seductive in their own fucked up sort of ways. And I think the real answer to this, you know, quote unquote mystery is that, like, yes, Euron and Daario are similar because they'll play similar roles in Daenerys' storyline. Like, Euron wants to marry Daenerys. Euron wants to seduce the Dragon Queen. And Daenerys has that dream about Euron's fucking ice cold cock. So, like, there's a thing that's gonna happen there. And maybe Daenerys will, for a time, be tempted by Euron, just as she's been tempted by Daario. So I think that, you know, there's a similar, like, story thematic role that Euron and Daario play, and I think that's why they seem so similar. Euron secretly being Daario and, like, fucking traipsing around the world, playing both roles at once during A Dance with Dragons and A Feast with Crows. You can do some really tortured things to the timeline to try and make that work, but I think it's basically implausible. So I don't think that theory is true. I think it's more of a thematic narrative similarity that those two characters have. Bolton. This one's weird. It's the theory that Roose Bolton is secretly a vampire, an immortal White Walker vampire who steals people's skin. Yeah, we're that deep down the iceberg, and there's still fucking multiple layers left. Bolton is not true. like Roose is a weird guy. Like, he's always leeching his shit, and he's weirdly relaxed about how Ramsay is like a murderous psycho and out of control, and like probably like murdered his son Domeric. Roose is a weird dude. My favorite quote about Roose is Barbary Dustin saying that he to Roose Bolton, people are just like playthings. He just rolls dice. It's all a game to him, life and death. And that's why he's sort of weirdly detached about everything. But some people believe that he's so detached and so weird that he's actually secretly a vampire who steals people's faces, and that he plans to kill Ramsay and wear Ramsay's skin so that he can continue to be the lord of the Dreadfort for many, many more years. And maybe he's like a human White Walker hybrid or something, because there is a lot of stuff about human animal hybrids in A Song of Ice and Fire. That's another like weird thing that George Martin is like slightly creepily enthusiastic about, is like human women breeding with monsters, and like, you know, the Night's Queen and the Night's King and all that Gorgossos chimera stuff, all sorts of weird shit in the lore about that stuff. So it's not as crazy as it sounds that Roose Bolton is secretly a vampire White Walker. What I need to do is read bloody what's that book about the fever dream? George R. R. Martin wrote a book about vampires, and Poncho says Swifty needs his water. Yeah, you're not wrong. George Martin wrote a book about vampires, and I think I need to read that book in order to make a informed assessment about the Bolton theory. So it's pretty wild. There is an AltShiftX video about it, I think. It's a very old video, so probably not a very good one. But it's a fun one. It's an interesting one. Next theory, the Mountain is actually a nice guy. I don't see how anyone can think the Mountain is a nice guy, because he murders and rapes and burns a lot of people. But one thing that I do like about the Mountain is that, you know, it talks about how he has those terrible headaches, those splitting migraines, and that he like chugs a whole bunch of milk of the poppy in order to like try and deal with the pain, and perhaps that pain is part of why he does what he does. And you know, there are like sort of different takes on this, but like personally, I like it when there are reasons why horrible people are horrible, and like obviously having headaches doesn't justify being as horrible as the Mountain is. But you know, I like A Song of Ice and Fire when it humanizes the villains and it explores how they became the way they are, and what it's like to be them. Because I think that part of what art can be is a way to make us more compassionate in our real lives, in the real world. And I think that the best way to solve conflicts in the real world is by seeing the humanity in people we are told are less than human. And I'll get off this soapbox shortly, but like, for that reason, I really like villains in fiction who are human and are people. Because yes, there are bad people in the world, but normally there's some kind of reason, there's some kind of way to see them as human. So I like how the headaches and the pain humanizes the Mountain, even though he's still an absolute piece of shit. Spirus in the live chat says, a villain doesn't need to be justified to be motivated. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's a really great way to say it. Like, of course, nothing that the Mountain does is justified. He's an evil piece of shit. But there are reasons behind his motivations, and I think that it's worthwhile to understand the feelings and the history that motivate people, especially the worst people. That's my opinion. So yeah, I don't think the Mountain is actually a nice guy, but there's interesting things to talk about his character. Cersei killed Joffrey. Now that is some Valyrian steel tinfoil. So, I mean, I immediately think of Cersei being about to poison Tommen in the Blackwater. I don't even remember if that's in the book, but one of the best bits in the show is when Cersei is about to poison Tommen when she thinks that she's about to lose the Battle of the Blackwater. I think Cersei might kill Joffrey under similar circumstances, but Joffrey's death was not under similar circumstances. It was his marriage to Marjorie Tyrell. I don't see what motivation Cersei could possibly have. And if Cersei killed Joffrey, we would know about it from her thoughts in her POV chapters. So I don't know what the take here is meant to be. But I don't think Cersei killed Joffrey. It's like, you know, the laws of robotics. Like, the three things Cersei won't do is kill her children, let go of power, and stop drinking wine. Those are the three things that Cersei won't do. So she wouldn't kill Joffrey. Next theory. A Song of Ice and Fire is part of the Lovecraft universe. And that's just like kind of low-key true. Because there's a bunch of fucking... Like, if you read The World of Ice and Fire, the world book, if you go east, there are all these weird civilizations where there's like fish people called the Deep Ones who breed with humans, and there's this oily black stone or greasy black stone and these ancient mysterious monoliths located around the World of Ice and Fire, and fucking fish people with sharpened teeth, and it connects to like the black stone that fell from the sky and the Bloodstone Emperor and the evil and Ashai and all of that stuff. So like, don't expect it to come to the fore. Like maybe through Euron we'll get a little bit of that Lovecraft stuff if he summons like a kraken or something. Shit's gonna get more Lovecraftian before it gets less Lovecraftian. Let's put it like that. There's also a bunch of names in the World of Ice and Fire that are just straight up taken from Lovecraft, like Carcosa. Is that Lovecraft or is that... Yeah, there's several names. There's a whole bunch of Lovecraft references. Like, Lovecraft is a big influence on A Song of Ice and Fire. Just mostly around the fringes, mostly around the edges. So, like, I don't expect it to be, like, a big plot point. Like, don't expect Cthulhu to appear on page, but there's definitely some Lovecraftian juju in the World of Ice and Fire. Next theory, Varys is a merman. Well, we never see his feet. He might have flippers. So that one's confirmed. Next theory, Westeros is in a hollow earth. Maybe as an attempt to, like, explain some of the astronomical weirdness, like with the weird seasons. That's probably how you explain the weird seasons, right? Like, we're actually on the interior of the earth. So there's got to be, like, a sun on the inside of the hollow earth, and everyone's actually just walking around on the inside of the planet. So I assume that the gravity has been inverted somehow, because maybe that's how it works inside the eye of Macumber. Maybe Macumber is made out of some kind of dark matter which repels matter, and that's how all of Westeros is just walking around on the inside of the eyeball, and that's how it's a hollow earth. And obviously the lizard people from the hollow earth are represented by the velociraptors that are mentioned in the World of Ice and Fire. So yeah, I think that's confirmed. Westeros is in a hollow earth for sure. Next one, Tyrion is a time-traveling fetus. Okay, all right. It's been a while since I've read it. D plus D equals T is what it is, I think. The idea is that Tyrion Lannister is the child of Daenerys Targaryen and Khal Drogo, because when Daenerys got pregnant with the child who she called Rhaego, she had Mirri Maz Duur perform magic to resurrect Drogo, and then the baby inside her died, and she gave birth to this weird magical corpse dragon worm baby horror thing that came out of her. But the theory goes that in actual fact, when Mirri Maz Duur caused that to happen, she wasn't actually killing Daenerys' baby. She was merely teleporting Daenerys' fetus through time and space into the womb of Joanna Lannister. which means that Tyrion is a Targaryen, by the way, son of Daenerys Targaryen, as well as half Dothraki, which is important, of course. Maybe explains his prowess in combat in the Battle of the Blackwater. And yeah, Tyrion's a time traveling fetus. I don't know what else to tell you. It's obviously true. Next theory: Jon plus Arya. So I mean, that's just from the draft outline that George Martin wrote in 1993. There is an outline where he says that originally Jon and Arya were going to fall in love, but Tyrion was also going to fall in love with Arya. It's just some like weird shit from like back when A Song of Ice and Fire wasn't even really A Song of Ice and Fire yet. It's just like a weird draft that thankfully George R. R. Martin didn't go through on. So yeah, we can skip that one. Next theory, Untommen. I actually don't know what this is. This is like, we've gone through like dozens of theories. I don't know what Untommen is. I assume like that means that Tommen is actually dead and Tommen is a zombie or something. Like the mountain. Maybe like Qyburn did something to Tommen. I don't know this theory. Maybe like someone tried to replace Tommen for like, you know, the political power of having a king. Maybe Sir Pounce is secretly pulling the strings. I don't know. I don't know what Untommen is. Next theory, Ned is a pigeon. This one's actually fucking great. So like, a lot of the Starks are skin changes. Arya walks into a cat. Bran walks into Summer and Hodor. Jon walks into Ghost unknowingly. And so the theory is that, well, maybe Ned walked into a pigeon, because at the moment that Ned Stark was executed on the steps of Baelor's Sept, a bunch of pigeons flew up very conspicuously in the TV show. So the theory is that maybe Ned, as a skin changer, maybe he didn't know that he was a skin changer, but in the moment of his death, he walked into another creature, which is probably what Robb Stark did, by the way. When Robb Stark died, I really like the theory that Robb Stark walked into his direwolf Greywind, so that after he died, he had a second horrible death in Greywind, being killed by the Freys. Because, of course, what's the point of A Song of Ice and Fire theory if it doesn't add additional goddamn trauma and horror and suffering? And the reason why this Ned is a pigeon theory is great is because it also adds an extra layer of deep fucking traumatic horror. Because as you'll remember, when Arya was running wild on King's Landing, Arya kills a pigeon and eats a pigeon because she's really hungry. And so the really like horrifying fucking 5D take here is that Arya killed her father, killed and ate her father's soul in pigeon form. And poor Ned was probably trying to help Arya. Ned would have been very confused finding himself in the body of a pigeon, but if he saw Arya, he probably would have tried to help Arya or communicate to Arya to help his darling daughter, only for his darling daughter to kill him with a stick and eat him. So I kind of love it. Like, I mean, no, it's not true, but I kind of love it. Ned is a pigeon, confirmed. Next theory, Bran will rape Meera through Hodor. So Bran's been walking into Hodor, and he knows that it's wrong. He knows that there's something abominable about taking over another human being's body. And a lot of people are anticipating some kind of climactic moment where Bran does something horrible and realizes that it's horrible and there's consequences for doing that horrible thing. And also there's been talk about Bran having like a crush on Meera. And there is a lot of rape in A Song of Ice and Fire, and I guess that's why people's brains have gone in this direction. Like, the ultimate abomination that could possibly happen in Bran's arc would be raping Meera through Hodor. That would certainly be about the most abominable thing you can imagine. I don't think it'll happen. That doesn't really make sense to me, and it would be horrible. So I don't think that theory is true, but I can sort of see why people's minds might go there. There is an awful lot of rape in the story, and I guess this theory reflects that. Thanks for the super chat from Abby, who says that the Untommen theory is undead Tommen, It's the theory that Cersei will ask Qyburn to resurrect him. Damn. I kind of like it. It's kind of logical. Like, Cersei is a big fan of Qyburn. She's a big fan of Robert Strong. Maybe she would want her darling boy to be resurrected. Like, he wouldn't come back right. But I could imagine like a really horrifying scene of like some kind of awful zombie, wretched Tommen corpse, barely alive monster, with Cersei like delusionally clutching him to her, like pretending that he's all there. You could imagine something really horrifying around that. So that's a cool image, but I don't think it's likely to happen. Tyrion will sleep with Penny, who is his daughter. Oh boy. So there is Penny, this dwarf girl in A Dance with Dragons, who Tyrion meets. I don't think there's any like attraction there. I don't think they're like into each other. Could Penny be his daughter? Like, I guess. Like, Tyrion has had a lot of sex with a lot of sex workers, and he could have some bastards out there, I suppose. Is dwarfism genetic? Is the fact that Penny is a dwarf, does that make it more likely? Does that make it more likely that Penny is Tyrion's daughter? I don't know. But that is exactly the sort of weird, like, eatable bullshit that George Martin might pull. I'm not sure what the point would be. I'm not sure what that adds to the story. But it is kind of fun. Mo XL in the live chat, the person who posted this Iceberg meme to Reddit, says that the meme has now been removed on the subreddit. And look, I'm not gonna go on a rant about how Reddit mods suck, but I will imply it. Bloodraven will steal Bran's body. Wait, did Penny kiss Tyrion? Lord Farquaad in the live chat says that Penny kissed Tyrion in the books. I don't remember Penny kissing Tyrion, but yeah, I guess that sounds right. Anyway, Bloodraven will steal Bran's body. That should be higher up on the iceberg, because that's not even that crazy. Bloodraven, as we talked about with the Jojen Paste thing, Bloodraven does evil shit for what he sees as the greater good, and what he has done to Bran is super unethical and weird and gross and scary and creepy. We know that skin changes can skin change into other bodies. Bloodraven is still in his original body, and he's like a master sorcerer, so it seems very logical to me that Bloodraven will want to steal Bran's body. So maybe the moment that that Bran realizes that, oh my god, like, Bloodraven force-fed me Jojen Paste, maybe that will be a moment where Bran turns against Bloodraven. And maybe when Bloodraven tries to take Bran's body, that'll be when Bran flees the cave, the Three-Eyed Crow's cave. So yeah, I think it's pretty believable. Like you know, I mean, the whole Old Gods thing is always spooky and manipulative. Like, George R. R. Martin has written multiple sci-fi stories about like evil, seductive hive minds who are manipulating everyone. Like, even Bloodraven himself might be like an unfortunate puppet of the Old Gods, controlled by them. And I think Bran might ultimately become the same. I mean, you look at all the like other Greenseers, the Children of the Forest, who were like entombed and sucked into the roots of the Old Gods. Like, it's a weird, like, parasitic, monstrous life form, these goddamn weirwoods and the Old Gods. So, you know, Bran might become sucked into it. Maybe Bloodraven is the same, you know? Ola says that Bloodraven is the hive mind and he controls all the Children of the Forest like puppets. Well, except the hive mind, the Old Gods and the weirwoods and the Children of the Forest, they've been around much longer than Bloodraven has. So, like, I think Bloodraven does have some influence here. But I don't think Bloodraven's like the big puppet master in charge of all the Old Gods. Bloodraven is just one soul among many with the Old Gods. So I think that it's like a higher thing that's going on here. This is an ancient god, the Old Gods. And it may be that Bloodraven is just as victimized by them as Bran is. Next theory, Cersei will rape Tommen. That's horrible, and I don't see why it would happen. So that's all I got to say about that. Next theory, Tywin is the Dusky Woman. You remember that bit at the end of that movie, Ali G Into House, where Charles Dance, the actor who plays Tywin, dances around and does some twerking in some little hot pants? That's what I imagine when I see Tywin is the Dusky Woman. Because the Dusky Woman is this mysterious woman who is with Victarion on his ship and is like his bed warmer. And the Dusky Woman is kind of sinister and weird. She sort of like hisses at people, and she's mute. She doesn't have a tongue. And a lot of people suspect that the Dusky Woman is secretly actually being warged or skin changed by Euron as a way to keep an eye on Victarion, which is like a bit outlandish, but like low-key exactly the sort of bullshit that Euron would do. Especially as like the Dusky Woman is having sex with Victarion. And Euron is such a horrible, creepy motherfucker who like sexually abused Aeron and his other brothers. Having sex with Victarion through the Dusky Woman is like exactly the kind of perverted, perverse, weird shit that Euron might do. So is the Dusky Woman being skin changed by Euron? Probably. Is Tywin the Dusky Woman? Well, I guess when Tywin died, he was actually secretly a skin changer. So just in the same way that Robb walked into Grey Wind, and in the same way that Ned walked into that pigeon, I think logically speaking, Tywin must have walked into the Dusky Woman. How could anything else be true? So confirmed. Next theory, Jon is his own father. Well, maybe if Jon is some kind of time-traveling fetus like Tyrion. I guess, I mean, we know that time travel is a thing since Bran, like, walked into Hodor to turn him into Hodor. So I guess... and there was a bit of time travel when... Jon saw that vision of Bran as a weirwood tree. And I think that happened at a different time than it happened for Bran. And people like, whisper through the trees at each other. So yeah, time travel's a thing. But if Jon's mother is Lyanna, I guess that means that Jon has to time travel, have sex with his own aunt. Maybe at the Tower of Joy? So, well, hold on. Is Jon Rhaegar? Are we saying that Jon is Rhaegar, and in order to fulfill the prophecy of Azor Ahai, he faked his own death at the Battle of the Trident and actually used a TARDIS to go into Lyanna's womb, thus killing her, naturally, at the Tower of Joy, and turn himself into a baby to be carried to Winterfell by Ned Stark, so that Rhaegar/Jon could fulfill the prophecy of the prince that was promised and save the world from the White Walkers. Confirmed. Next theory. FAegon, young Griff, is Varys and Illyrio's son. Well, Varys says he's a eunuch. Maybe he's actually a woman. And it actually is a thing, a concept, that maybe Varys is the sibling of Sarah, who was Illyrio's wife, who some people suspect is a Blackfyre. So, like, the Blackfyre theory is that Illyrio and Sarah are the parents of Aegon Blackfyre, but maybe Varys is actually a woman, and she is young Griff's mother with Illyrio. Look, does it need to be true? No. Could it be true? Is Varys a female mermaid? Well, I love the fact that Varys is a merman is 1, 2, 3 ranks higher than Varys is secretly the mother of young Griff. Unless we're saying that Illyrio is a woman and Varys is a man. I mean, I don't know what's under those folds with Illyrio, So maybe Illyrio's a woman. I don't know how he grew that beard. Look, it's best not to think about it. Thanks for the super chat from Matthew Tyler, who says, theory, Alt-Shift-X equals the internet historian. No, actually, Vati Vidya is who I am. Final theory. You guys ready? Drum roll. We've reached the bot. Let's just take a moment to see how far we've been. We started at the top of the iceberg with all of the most obviously true theories, like Jon will be resurrected and Alleras is Sarella. Then we went down to some of the deep lore shit, like Mormont's Raven, Faceless Men, and the Doom, Frey Pie. Now we're getting to the most absurd, the most unbelievable, the most guaranteed to be false theory imaginable. The Winds of Winter will be released before Christmas 2021. You know how I feel about that theory? This face sums it all up. This face is how I feel. That's what I think are our odds of getting the Winds of Winter by Christmas 2021. Look, if I'm going to be completely honest, I feel optimistic about the Winds of Winter. Like, that's probably just wishful thinking. But George has said some things lately that sound kind of optimistic. He said that he's coming out of his cabin soon and he's feeling good about some stuff, and it's like, oh, maybe that'd be cool. But I've thought that same thing for the last 10 years in a row, so if we're being honest, it's more likely that Varys is a merman. Okay, we've reached the bottom of the iceberg. We've been streaming for 2 hours. Should we wrap it up? I think I want to do like a speed round of like one more iceberg. I want to do a little bit more because I'm having fun. So we're gonna look at one more iceberg, and we're probably not gonna do the whole thing because I've got multiple icebergs prepared here. I mean, this one is significantly more elaborate than the previous one. There's a lot going on here. I like to just see if there's stuff I don't know here. There's also this one, which is a lot simpler. It's very blurry. I don't know who made this one. But it's got R = J, Clegane Bowl, Jorah equals Azor Ahai, which I think is dumb. Azor Ahai. The name Azor Ahai is like the only reason why people use it. Jon x Dany, yeah, that'll probably happen in the books. A blue rose growing from a chink of ice and filling the air with sweetness is something that Daenerys sees in the House of the Undying. Varys Blackfyre, I think Aegon Blackfyre is more likely, but Varys might be Sarah's brother for sure. Thanks for the super chat from Mo XL, who made that first iceberg. Tyrion Targaryen can get lost. Jon Snow was Azor Ahai. I mean, I think Daenerys is also Azor Ahai in a similar way. Bolton, Grand Northern Conspiracy, Maester Conspiracy, we already talked about those. Dragon released from Winterfell. I mean, that one's kind of interesting because in Book 2, Bran through Summer, I believe, sees what appears to be like a dragon made of smoke flying away from Winterfell. And like the simpler theory is that it's just a bunch of smoke, bro, and wolves don't really know what dragons or smoke look like, and so through that sort of confused cognitive lens, Bran thinks that the smoke is a dragon. But there is that legend about like there's a dragon under Winterfell heating up the hot springs or whatever. And maybe dragon eggs were laid down there long ago. So there's kind of some fun things to think about. But I don't think a dragon actually flew out of Winterfell in the second book. Stannis equals Night King. There is that like that vision that Daenerys has in the House of the Undying of someone with like blue eyes and no shadow or something weird like that, and like the thing at the prow of the ship. I mean, I think that the basic idea is that like, yes, like Stannis is willing to make evil sacrifices for the sake of like his kingship and like saving the world, burning Shireen and burning Edric Storm are things that he wants to do or might do, and that's kind of Night King sort of behavior, because the Night King in the books, the Night's King, made sacrifices to the White Walkers to try and sort of gain his power and whatever. So you can make comparisons between Stannis and the Night King. But I don't think Stannis will become like a ice wizard, if that's what you're asking. Rhaegar's harp. Some people think that Rhaegar's harp is inside Lyanna Stark's tomb in the crypts of Winterfell, which might be an interesting way to hint at Jon's true parentage as Rhaegar's son. Others aren't evil. The White Walkers aren't evil. That's kind of fun. Because, Song of Ice and Fire is a story where, usually the villains have something more complicated going on than just being evil. George R. R. Martin said that we don't need any more Dark Lords. We don't need any more good guys versus bad guys. So, what the fuck are the others then, huh? Are the others just these unambiguously evil creatures with nothing redeeming, nothing human about them? I sort of go back and forth on that. But I don't think it's going to turn out that, the humans were the bad guys all along and the White Walkers were good. But I think that there might be some discoveries about the origins of the White Walkers that might make us think, shit, maybe this is kind of on us. This is kind of, goo. Next theory, Melisandre Targaryen. I don't think Melisandre's a Targaryen. Not everyone who likes fire is necessarily a Targaryen. But yeah, I don't know what the evidence for that is. Rhaegar plus Lyanna equals 3 dragon eggs. Are we saying that Lyanna laid an egg? That would be funny. Lyanna was a trap. What? The Southern Ambitions alliance deliberately got Rhaegar seduced by Lyanna in order to cause Robert's rebellion? That would be fun. That one's too blurry. Theon equals Azor Ahai. I mean, it doesn't die, rises harder and stronger. Azor Ahai is reborn and resurrected. There's a similarity there. Bran equals Time Lord. Well, yeah, look, he walked into Hodor, so, there's something there. Sweetrobin equals Greenseer. That I actually like. I know that Preston Jacobs is a big fan of that idea, that Robert Aaron has visions of the future, and he talks about, Marillion singing when he shouldn't be able to hear Marillion singing or something. I don't know, there's actually some interesting stuff there. Lemongate, Dornish master plan, no magic. Yeah, so another Preston Jacobs thing is that, everything in Westeros, there's no magic. It's actually all science fiction. It's like a post-apocalyptic nuclear disaster that's caused mutations, and the Red Comet is actually a Vulcan spaceship or something. I don't know, man. Cave devils. I don't know what cave devils are. Is that I don't know. Aren't there eyeless monsters in the caves? Aren't there Falmer down there somehow? I don't know. No prophecy. I mean, prophecies come true sometimes, just not in the ways you expect. Read Duncan Egg, bro. Jon equals the Night's King. I do like the idea that Jon will marry a White Walker. I do like the idea that Jon will... Jon has White Walker blood. The Starks, the Night's King was a Stark, and the Starks of Winterfell have some kind of pact with the White Walkers, and in order to fulfill it, Jon must marry a White Walker to remake peace between the White Walkers and the humans. I don't think that's likely, but I actually like that idea. Old Shift X has a video about it. Ancient Stark Secrets. I think it's actually kind of cool. Ramsay Snow isn't human. Nah, the real twist is that the worst of us are humans. That's the real horror. Bro. Robb warged Catelyn. Why? Are you saying that Robb walked into Catelyn at the Red Wedding and cut little Jingle Bell Frey's throat? Why? To ensure his own death? Are you saying... Oh no, Catelyn... You're right. We're saying that Lady Stoneheart is Robb Stark, is I guess what that theory is. Which makes it kind of cool that when Lady Stoneheart is sitting there with Robb's crown, what if that's actually Robb with Robb's crown in Catelyn's body? That's kind of fun. Blackgate equals portal. Well, I mean, it is a portal. Any door is a portal. Are you saying the Black Gate fucking teleports you to another dimension? I don't think that's true, because you can go through the wall in lots of different ways. Geryon Lannister is the Shrouded Lord. What? Because they laugh and Tyrion has a dream or something? I don't know. I think that's dumb. Die in Westeros, wake up as an other. There would be a lot more others. A lot more others. Roose Bolton is the rat cook, that cannibalistic monster. Well, I guess that's gonna go with the Bolton theory that Roose Bolton is an immortal White Walker vampire type person. So I guess the rat cook thing is sort of an addition to that. All prophesied heroes equals evil. I'm actually kind of on board for that. Azor Ahai, when you think about it, seems like maybe he's a bad dude, what with stabbing his wife with a sword and all of that. And there are some suspicious similarities between Azor Ahai and the Night's King, because the Night's King is someone who kills the Amethyst Empress to sort of gain power and so on. So like, yeah, I think that's a very legitimate interpretation, that the whole sort of notion of like a prophesied hero might actually be something a lot darker and more complicated. And the fulfillment of Azor Ahai, it's probably not going to be Jon Snow and Daenerys like high-fiving and then like burning dragons and having a fun time, burning White Walkers and having a fun time. It'll might be more like, you know, Jon sacrificing Daenerys or something like that. So yeah, I like the idea that the prophecies are actually kind of evil. Ned's not dead. He's actually Mance. Tower of Joy equals blood magic ritual. I mean, that kind of makes sense, because there was death and it created life. He created the life of Jon Snow, who might be Azor Ahai and might save the world, and only death can pay for life. And, you know, the Tower of Joy is very mysterious. Like, why exactly did Arthur Dayne fight Ned Stark? What exactly? Didn't they have basically the same goals? They both wanted to protect Lyanna. They both wanted to protect Jon. Why were they fighting? And also, like, the entire story of the Tower of Joy, we get it in a fever dream in Ned's consciousness. Like, how do we even know that any of that's accurate? So, hell, like, I like that idea. Tower of Joy was a blood magic ritual. I mean, it's not true, but it's fun to think about. Post-apocalyptic, we talked about that. I think Preston Jacobs is all over that. You know, it's all science fiction, nuclear radiation, spaceships, and so on. Because George Martin has a lot of early, like, weird sci-fi stuff that he wrote, so why not? The Others are a Merling hoax. Damn. I like it. I think that the Merlings might be an other hoax, though, if I'm being honest. The trees are evil. That should just be near the top. Like, the Weirwoods and the Old Gods are obviously fucking evil. I mean, they took fucking blood sacrifice. The old Northmen used to hang corpses in the Weirwood trees as a sacrifice. So, yeah, for sure. Rhaego equals Jon Snow. I guess that has to be another time-traveling fetus. Secret second wall. Like, what if they go north? What if they go north to like the heart of winter to like kill the White Walkers or whatever, and they go all the way north and they find that there's another wall, and then they cross that wall and then they're in Dawn, or they cross that wall and then they're in like the White Walker version of Westeros, where the White Walkers are all like, oh boy, I sure hope that the humans won't come and invade our peaceful White Walker civilization. That'd be fun. And of course, Aerys Targaryen talked about building a second wall to like get more territory north of the wall. That's all fun. Hodor is the name of the Great Other. Yeah, so like there was this theory that maybe the reason why Hodor is the way he is because he saw something terrible down in the deep, dark crypts of Winterfell, and maybe he saw something terrible, and the reason why he keeps saying Hodor is because Hodor is the name of the Great Other. And I think Melisandre says something about like, oh, the Great Other has a name, but we must not say its name. So, you know, I actually kind of like that idea that Hodor, you know, saw the Great Other. But, you know, I don't suppose it's true. Rhaegar was reborn as a dragon at the Tower of Joy. I mean, not a literal dragon, but a metaphorical dragon called Jon Snow. Maybe Rhaegar warged into baby Jon, and that's who we're dealing with. I mean, in Dunk and Egg, like, you know, a dragon hatching turns out to be a metaphor for egg finding confidence, you know, so it's a thing. Dany equals fire white. I actually love that theory. The idea that Daenerys actually died on that pyre, but through the magical sacrifice of Mirri Maz Duur and Drogo and Rhaego, Daenerys was resurrected, similar to Beric. And she's now a fire white, like Beric is a fire white. And maybe she's actually sort of undead and doesn't even know it. And maybe that'll have consequences in the long run. I think that's a really fun idea. You probably can't read this blurry-ass text, but this right here says Dyson Sphere, which is a science fiction concept of like a giant structure built around a star in order to harvest the energy of that star. I'm not... Are we saying that like the world of Westeros is a Dyson Sphere? Not sure why or how, but like, sure, we're at the bottom of the iceberg. Let's get weird. L plus other equals Jon. I guess we're saying that Lyanna Stark had sex with a White Walker and gave birth to Jon. I mean, no, But I wouldn't be surprised if Jon Snow had some White Walker blood in him. Go watch that Old Shift X Ancient Stark Secrets thing. Renly's armor was rigged to kill him by the Florents in his camp. That's kind of great. Because, come on, Brienne, you saw a fucking shadow and then Renly's throat opened? Nah, man, it was actually some kind of Moorish assassination device built into his fucking neck brace on his armor or whatever. That's a fun idea. Because the Florents, they wanted to support the true king, Stannis Baratheon, so they assassinated Renly. Why not? Bravos equals Illuminati. I mean, there's lots of theories about how the Faceless Men and the Iron Bank are secretly like the same institution. Two sides of the same coin, you could say. And we know that, the Bravosi don't like dragons, they don't like Targaryens, they don't like Valyria, so like, maybe they secretly caused the doom of Valyria, maybe they secretly, helped the fall of the Targaryens, the Dance of the Dragons. You can get real conspiratorial about that, sure. Starks equals Snarks. Now that one's controversial, because there's a lot of people who think that the Starks are actually Grumpkins. But you heard it here first, I think. That's the Starks are Snarks. Targaryens are Grumpkins. I think that's what it is. The Red Waste equals the Garden of Eden. I mean, if we're going post-apocalyptic, then, maybe the Red Waste was originally some, wonderful paradise, but it got nuked by the Volcrans, and now it's all messed up. Daenerys does have that. She goes to that little ruined city in the Red Waste, and she sees this little like town, and she wants to grow olive trees and find some kind of respite there. So maybe that's symbolically like a Garden of Eden. The 3 Kingsguard at the Tower of Joy were others. YouTuber Lucifer Means Lightbringer draws a lot of parallels between Kingsguard and White Walkers because they're always described as like white shadows and stuff. So maybe there are some sort of thematic symbolic parallels there. What the fuck does this say? Every dead dreamer Bran sees in his falling dream equals a previous long night cycle. Shit, I actually like that a lot. I haven't heard that before, but I actually like that a lot. Because what we're seeing now with the White Walkers invading again does seem to be a repetition of what happened in the previous long night. And history is vague and uncertain enough that maybe if there had been a previous war against the White Walkers and another one before that and another one before that, history might not record it because, the wars are so destructive and apocalyptic, which feeds into that post-apocalyptic notion. So I kind of like it. It's all about, the old gods and the great other, or law locked in some ancient metaphysical cycle wheel of time. Roderick, the reader, does say that time is a wheel and everything repeats eventually. So, I kind of enjoy that. Maybe it's a endless loop and they've got to break out of it and achieve samsara. Lyanna Stark was a White Walker. Well, she did like Blue Winter Roses a lot. And that proves that she's a White Walker. Look, we're at the bottom of the iceberg. I don't know what to tell you. The Undying equals 666th degree Masons. Yeah, well, in the real world, there's the Stone Masons, who a lot of people think are secretly in charge of the world, but in reality, I think they're just old men who wear funny hats. So, that's basically the Undying, if we're being honest. So, yeah, sure. Sure. I think that that's true. The Ash River flows from Bloodraven's cave. The Ash River is the one in Ashai, isn't it? It's the one that's like flowing out of the fucking nuclear wasteland of the oily Blackstone city where some apocalypse seems to have happened. And I guess we're suggesting that the globe connects. Like you go far enough north beyond the wall, you eventually come up in Ashai from the south. Because, there are some weird, the 5 forts and everything are like these weird structures, which is suspiciously similar to the wall in Westeros, holding back the White Walkers. So yeah, I kind of enjoy the idea that there's like a connection there. There's a loop. Final theory, Nymeria was an other. Are we talking about Queen Nymeria who took over Dawn, or are we talking about the direwolf Nymeria? I mean, if we're talking about the direwolf Nymeria, I guess that means that Arya wargs into a White Walker, which is pretty impressive. I guess that makes Arya a Greenseer of the greatest potency. Maybe she's secretly Blood Raven? Hard to say. But guys, we made it. We survived the bottom of the iceberg. And goddamn, I'm not going to attempt to do this third iceberg. I think 2 icebergs is enough for now. But thank you so much for listening, everybody. And credit once again to Mo Exy, who posted this original iceberg. The second iceberg, I don't know who made that, unfortunately. But thank you all so much for participating. Thanks so much for the super chats. It's been real. We'll do some more stuff in the future. We're going to do the 100th episode of Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones Abridged soon. Someone says, can you give the link to the third iceberg? I have just put the link to the third iceberg in the chat. I'll also put in the link to the first iceberg. And yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll do this other iceberg in another stream sometime. We are going to schedule the 100th episode ahead of time. And it'll be fun. Go check out Glidus and Haydox and Poor Quentyn, and if you're feeling spicy, even Preston Jacobs. So cheers. Yes, you will be able to watch this live stream afterwards. It'll be up on the main channel. I've been talking for 2.5 hours, so time to wrap it up. Thanks.